What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories. 3 Saw, Chapter 41 Shiba Kong. Rukia Kuchiki quickly stepped forward to take a look. After passing through the door, she found that the scene was eerily quiet, with everyone staring blankly at the ring. On the stage is Su Chen. The Kaido light in Su Chen's hand formed a cover, wrapping a figure in it. Within a few seconds, the person who seemed to be on the verge of death was revived, and the flesh and blood on his body returned to its original position. He opened his eyes in confusion. I was surprised to find that I was still alive. And where a large piece of the wall collapsed was a big man, but at this time, this big man had no human appearance at all. All the bones, internal organs, and blood vessels in his body seemed to have been shattered by some huge force, like a piece of broken glass was broken into pieces. At this moment, Ping Yukong had a look of shock on his face. He never expected that Su Chen was so powerful. The finger that fell just now was obviously extremely elegant, but it was also devastating. In an instant, a shock wave erupted from his fingertips, and the big black bear flew backwards, collapsing the wall, and its body was even more destroyed. Not only that, even the underground structure was almost destroyed by that finger. The power of that finger was frightening, making all the talentless nobles present extremely frightened, but also jealous with envy. Aratuka Sumong was stunned for a moment when he saw this scene, and then quickly returned to normal, smiling with interest. Student Su Chen, are you okay? Makami, Weisui and the 3 girls rushed to Su Chen's side. Looking left and right, they found that Su Chen was not missing any arms or legs, and there was no bloodline on her body. I'm fine. At this time, Rukia Kuchiki also rushed to Su Chen's side and took Su Chen's hand. Let's go. Su Chen didn't care anymore and left with Rukia Kuchiki. Watching Su Chen's leaving figure, Hirano Kongjing came to Wangzong Zuming's side and said solemnly, Master Wangzuka, Su Chen's strength seems to be stronger than we imagined. Aratsuka Sumong smiled, isn't that just right? Lord Tokunada needs us to find just such a strong man. Lord Tokunada will be released from prison soon. By then, more and more people will surrender to the feet of our nobles. It's Soul Society. After Su Chen and others walked out of the basement. Rukia Kuchiki then let go of Su Chen's hand, reached out and touched Su Chen from head to toe. You're not injured anywhere, right? No. Su Chen was a little helpless, but Rukia Kuchiki's little hands were soft and quite comfortable to touch. Is it because of that incident that you care about me so much? After hearing Su Chen's words, Rukia Kuchiki's expression darkened. Indeed, she was too incompetent in the past to save Shiba Kaien. If Su Chen made another mistake this time, she really didn't know how to forgive herself. Rukia Kuchiki tightly grabbed the clothes at Su Chen's arms and put her head on Su Chen's chest, refusing to raise her head to let others see her vulnerability. Su Chen sighed softly, reached out and patted Rukia Kuchiki on the back. Take this opportunity to go to Shiba's house in Rukongai to apologize. I will accompany you. Rukia Kuchiki was silent for a long time. Su Chen waited patiently like this, feeling that the clothes on her chest seemed a little wet. Rukia Kuchiki wiped her tears with her hand, raised her head and said, okay. You 3, please go back to the academy first. Su Chen said to the 3 of them. Yes. Makami Rusui nodded and watched Su Chen, Teacher Kuchiki, and an unknown civilian heading towards Rukongai. After arriving at Examen Baidaemon, I saw Saidanfang. Saidanfang was originally guarding the door. The first thing he saw was Su Chen, and he couldn't help but said, why are you? Then he saw Rukia Kuchiki behind Su Chen, and immediately knelt down and said respectfully, I have met Miss Kuchiki. Rukia Kuchiki nodded, open the door. Yes. Si Danfang opened the door. Watching the 3 of Su Chen walking by, Si Danfang was a little surprised, thinking that when he first met Su Chen, he was surrounded by 2 captains. This time when he saw Su Chen, he was actually accompanied by Miss Kuchiki, and it seems that the relationship is quite good. It seems that I will call you Su Chen in the future. After walking out of Serai Tea, Cao Cao Chofeng bowed deeply to Su Chen and said, thank you, Mr. Su Chen, for saving your life. Where is your home? By the way, I can help treat your mother's illness. I just hope you can understand the world and don't make such mistakes again. I will take the adults there right away. Thatched Grass Chofeng cried with joy and led the 2 of them to a thatched hut. This hut is made of wooden boards and thatched on top. Many civilians without psychic powers on the street were so frightened that they hid after seeing Su Chen and Rukia Kuchiki with Zanpakuto, fearing that they might do something wrong and offend Master Shinigami. Su Chen also felt a little emotional in his heart. He also came from Rukongai District 80, but he didn't expect that he would become a Shinigami that everyone revered. Is this how Rukia Kuchiki feels in his heart? This is my home. After the thatched autumn breeze opened the door, Su Chen and Rukia Kuchiki stepped in. Since they didn't need to eat, there were no cooking utensils. After opening the curtain, there was a wooden bed. A woman on the wooden bed looked pale and kept coughing. After seeing the thatch and the autumn wind coming in, a trace of blood came to her pale face and she struggled to get up. Autumn wind. I wish you could come back. The woman did not blame her son for anything. She understood that her son did all this for her, and she just comforted the child gently. Mao Sao Chofeng couldn't help crying, her knees softened, and she knelt in front of the finished bed. Mom, I'm back. I won't participate in any boxing matches anymore, as long as you can get better. Su Chen made a seal in his hand, and the Kaido light enveloped the woman. It didn't take long for the woman's pale face to turn rosy, and her energy returned to a healthy state. The woman couldn't help showing a look of surprise on her face, and then she realized that her son had arrived home with 2 Shinigami. The woman quickly got up from the bed, knelt down and kowtowed with Sao Kaokufeng. Thank you 2 Shinigami-sama for saving my life. Su Chen waved his hand. Don't worry, do you know where Shiba Konghe's mansion is? I know this, I'll take the 2 adults there. Mao Sao Chofeng said happily, but he didn't expect that he could still help Master Su Chen. When I saw the huge hand stretching out from the ground in the distance holding a banner with the 4 characters, Shiba Kong, written on it, I knew I had arrived, and then I heard a fierce female voice. Just 1,000 push-ups are too much. How can we revitalize the Shiba family in the future? Do another 1,000 push-ups. Chapter 42 The Shiba Family's Last Hope. Sister, I really can't do it anymore. It's useless for you to step on me. Shiba's back was stepped on by a bandaged foot, and he lay on the grass, his hands already numb. He was unconscious, with a look of despair on his face. My eldest sister is beautiful, but unfortunately she has a cruel personality. I saw that it was a beautiful young woman, but her right hand disappeared from the upper arm downwards, and a white bandage was wrapped around the right upper arm. The black word, empty, is engraved on the left arm. Bandages were wrapped around his head and feet. There was a knife on his back. There is also a falling and collapsing swirl pattern painted on the clothes on the lower abdomen, which is the Shiba family pattern. But the most eye-catching thing is the huge scale comparable to Matsumoto Rangaku. The cool clothes reveal a large amount of eye-catching white. This woman is Shiba Kongzuru, and the man she tramples under her feet is Shiba Rock Eagle. Sister, it seems someone is coming. I know. Shiba Kuchiki let go of his feet, and Shiba Rock Vulture got up from the ground. His pupils dilated after seeing Rukia Kuchiki. She's the Shinigami who killed Big Brother. Shiba Kukaku's face no longer played playfully, but became serious. Shiba Kukaku, what advice do you have? Rukia Kuchiki didn't dare to raise her head, lowered her head and lowered her eyes. She didn't know how to face Shiba Kaien's sister and brother. Her lips trembled a few times and she bowed deeply. I'm sorry. I have always wanted to come to you to apologize, but I am too cowardly and can only avoid it, so I come to apologize so late. I'm sorry, I really. Okay. Don't apologize all the time. Shiba looked at Rukia Kuchiki and said. But. When Rukia Kuchiki was about to say something, Shiba Konkaku punched her in the head, leaving Rukia Kuchiki confused. Shiba Kukaku turned around and turned his back to Rukia Kuchiki. Speaking of his elder brother's death, the person who suffered the most was probably not himself, but Shinigami, who had been tortured by self-blame and guilt. Jashiro has told me about the big brother thing. In fact, it was not you who was wrong back then, or you are the one who regrets it the most. Really, I'm so sorry. Rukia Kuchiki didn't seem to hear Shiba Konghe's words, her fists were still clenched tightly, and her fingertips seemed to be piercing flesh. Bang's punch hit Rukia Kuchiki in the face. Shiba Kuchiki said, didn't I say it? Don't apologize anymore. Right. No. Thank you. Seeing that Shiba Kukaku was about to punch herself again, Rukia Kuchiki quickly changed her words. After a long silence, she bowed again and said from the bottom of her heart, thank you for forgiving me. Su Chen said, are you Shiba Kong? Who are you? My name is Su Chen, a commoner from Rukongai. Su Chen looked at Shiba Kong. He was quite interested in Shiba's 2 major technologies. One is Hanabi. The second is the technology leading to the Soul King's palace. But technology alone is not enough, the King Key, is also needed. I heard that Shiba's Hanabi is very famous. I wonder if you can let me see it. Rukia Kuchiki nervously grabbed Su Chen's sleeve. Su Chen patted her hand and turned around to give her a reassuring look. Oh, Shiba Konkaku didn't expect that someone would want to see his Hanabi technology. Our Shiba family's Hanabi technology is not spread to others. Please come back. Shiba Kuzuru turned around and prepared to enter his mansion. What if I can heal your broken right arm? As soon as Su Chen finished speaking, he saw Shiba Konghe's steps paused. You must be missing one hand, so it will be inconvenient when you study Hanabi, right? Just think of it as an exchange, what do you think? Before Shiba Konkaku could speak, Shiba Ganjo's eyes couldn't help but light up. Can you really heal my eldest sister's arm? If it can't be cured, it's up to you to deal with it. Su Chen didn't take this minor injury lightly. Then please heal my sister's arm. I will tell you the Hanabi technique even if she refuses to tell you. Shiba walked up to Su Chen and begged respectfully. Iwajiu. Shiba Kong couldn't help but turn around and frowned at his brother. Sister. Shiba Iwajiu also refused to show weakness. His younger brother saw how much pain the eldest sister suffered after losing one hand, and it hurt in his heart. This was one of the few times when he disobeyed his eldest sister. After Shiba Konkaku saw the look in his brother's eyes, he finally softened his heart and sighed, I will only teach you once. Next, Chen and Rukia Kuchiki followed Shiba Kongzuru into the Shiba mansion. Inside is a sloping passage going down. After walking for a while, you enter an underground plane. Then you push the door and enter. Inside is a research room where Shiba Kukaku usually studies hanabi. There are a lot of black powder and materials. Although Chen knew some knowledge about gunpowder in his previous life, he had never made it himself. This time it was a bit of a cram. Shiba Konkaku was surprised by Chen's ability. Chen knew many processes without telling him, have you known how to make hanabi for a long time? Chen smiled and did not answer. Rukia Kuchiki was also surprised. In Soul Society hanabi technology should be exclusive to the Shiba family. When did Chen learn about it? Soon, a spherical hanabi appeared in Chen's hands. Several people walked to the grass outside the mansion. Chen threw hanabi, which exploded into a ball of fire in the distance with a bang. Shiba Konkaku nodded and praised. Your talent is very good. I didn't expect that you can have such power in your first production. Are you interested in following me? No need. The hanabi of the Shiba family is different from the ones in the real world, and has the uniqueness of the Soul Society. What we can learn this time should be of great benefit to future trips to the Soul King Palace. If it still doesn't work, just come to Shiba Kukaku and borrow her hanabi turret. Chen untied the bandage on Shiba Konghei's right arm. Kaido light flashed in his hand, and granulation grew on the broken arm, which quickly recovered as before. Shiba Konkaku waved his arm. It was exactly the same as before he was injured, but he hadn't used his right arm for too long, so he was a little unaccustomed to it. Thank you. I owe you a favor. If you need any trouble in the future, the Shiba family can come to me anytime. Thank you for healing my eldest sister's arm. Shiba bowed to Chen. After saying goodbye to Shiba Kuzuru, Chen and Rukia Kuchiki set out on their way back to Seraiti. Unexpectedly, Rukia Kuchiki hugged Chen. Chapter 43 Tsunayashiro Tokunada. Unexpectedly, Rukia Kuchiki's figure looks as flat as a piece of paper from the outside, but you can still feel a little bit of lotus in your arms before revealing the sharp corners. And it is so soft, it feels very comfortable to hold. Thank you for coming with me, Chen. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't even have the courage to apologize. Rukia Kuchiki buried her head in Chen's arms and thanked her gently, her eyes filled with tears. Hot tears flowed down unconsciously. You're welcome. Chen stretched out her hand and gently slid her fingers over her face, which was tender and smooth. I saw crystal-like tears falling on Rukia Kuchiki's innocent and beautiful face, coupled with the cheerful smile after untying her heart. It turned out to be a soul-stirring beauty. Rukia Kuchiki let Chen wipe her tears, feeling the hot temperature of Chen's body and the warm fingers, which were completely different from her cold hands. After hugging him for a while and feeling the warmth, he let go a little shyly. Chen also clearly felt that after apologizing, Rukia Kuchiki's mood was relieved, and her whole mood became much more cheerful. Along the way, I would jump over a stone on the ground from time to time, and my body became much lighter, as if a big stone had been removed from my body. The two passed by a clear river. Rukia Kuchiki couldn't help but walk to the river, knelt on the ground, rolled up her sleeves, exposed her white wrists, and stretched her hands in the water playfully. You know, you can never see a river like this in District 78. Being able to play by the river was the happiest thing for me when I was a child. Rukia Kuchiki's eyes were full of memories. That was 100 years ago, and only in front of Chen could she speak her mind so easily. Let's go. The water flow is the source of all happiness for the common people of Rukongai. Let's not disturb it too much. Rukia Kuchiki retracted her hand and returned to Rukongai after many years. She couldn't help but see the river for a while. Soul Society, the central underground prison. A group of guards, covered in white clothes with only a pair of eyes exposed, entered. One of the guards entered and opened the door of a prison room with a key. A ray of light shone through the door, but he did not see any figure under the light, only the deep darkness. The guard in white actually knelt down to the prisoner in the prison and said respectfully, I have met Tsunayashiro-sama. In the darkness, a pair of sinister eyes like snake venom actually opened. Those eyes were lifeless, just like a lion majesty hiding in the shadows. This person is none other than Tsunayashiro Tokunada. Arazuka, do you have any new information? Tsunayashiro Tokunada's voice also seemed to be dyed a venomous green, which made people shudder. Recently, a very talented civilian appeared in Seraiti, named Chen. His Reiatsu has at least reached the captain level. With just a snap of his fingers, his power was so terrifying that he almost destroyed my venue. You have done well. If you can recruit this person into our noble team, it will also increase our strength. Lord Tokunada, your sentence is not long. When you are released from prison, everything will be under your control. Well, please step back. Yes, Tokunada-sama. After Aratuka Sumong closed the door, all the light in the room seemed to disappear. In such darkness, Tsunayashiro Tokunada smiled crazily. I didn't expect those old immortals from the Tsunayashiro family to dare to imprison me for so long. After I was released from prison, the first thing I did was to kill them all and welcome my return with their blood. Su Chen and Rukia Kuchiki passed through the White Gate again and parted in front of the Spiritual Arts Academy. Then let's say goodbye here. I'll go to the 13th Division to do a mission. By the way, what are your tasks in Division 13? Rukia Kuchiki pondered for a moment. Most of the tasks are to go to the real world to purify the hollows, but there are some files that need to be processed in Seraiti. If you join the 13th Division, we can go to the real world to purify the hollows together. Looking at Rukia Kuchiki's leaving figure, Su Chen thought that maybe she could go to the real world and have a look if she had the opportunity. Urahara Kazuki has many methods that you can learn from if you have the opportunity. There's also Shihuen Yoruichi's black cat, which should feel pretty good when petted. If you have the chance, take it home. Speaking of which, there is more than one way to get to the Soul King's palace. One is to make the King Key, and then use the Hanabi turret of Shiba Kuzuru's family. Although the Shiba family has declined, the technology of reaching the Spirit King's palace has been passed down. The second is to become a member of Team Zero. As long as you can create technology that can represent the history of Soul Society and be selected by the Soul King, you can go to the Soul King Palace. For Aizen Sosuke, he naturally disdains Method 2. After all, he is planning to kill the Soul King himself and become the king. So for Aizen Sosuke, the only Method 1 is left. If you wait patiently, you can just wait until you watch Attack Soul Society, then follow Kurosaki Ichigo and others on the Hanabi Fortress to reach the Soul King Palace directly. Or go up with Yawatch. In short, I am not in a hurry to go to the Soul King Palace. There will always be a chance to go there. Even if there is really no chance, as long as the technology is developed to break the 72 layers of barriers between Seraiti and Soul King Palace, one can still reach Soul King Palace. To put it bluntly, as long as your power surpasses the Spirit King, the barriers set up by the Spirit King will be nothing to you. After thinking about it, Su Chen returned to Spiritual Arts Academy. I have almost learned the 4 Shinigami techniques of slashing, punching, walking, and ghost, and it's time to graduate. After arriving in a group, unexpectedly, Hirano Kongjin came up to them, holding a black card in his hand. This is a black card issued by our aristocratic central bank. It can be used for unlimited overdraft in Soul Society. Su Chen looked at Ping Yi and said nothing. Hirano presented the black card with both hands and said with a smile, "Of course we know that this small amount of money is nothing to Mr. Su Chen, but it is just an admission ticket. In addition to money, there will be more money in the future. There is more to offer. As long as you nod your head, you will know that not only Soul Society, but also the 3 realms are at our feet." Chapter 44 Asking You to Die. After hearing this, Su Chen reluctantly became a little interested. Nobles are the 3 realms again. I'm afraid that behind them is the insidious guy Tsunayashiro Tokunada. The guy Tsunayashiro Tokunada has a twisted and sinister personality, and his own strength is not very good. The main reason is that the Tsunayashiro family's Enrikadenori is very powerful. That Zanpakuto was not made by Wang Yu, and it is one of the oldest Zanpakuto. And Tsunayashiro Tokunada's 2 subordinates are more powerful than the other, whether it is Dohane or Yuzan Kinahiko. Okay, I'll accept this black card. After Hirano Sora saw Su Chen accept the black card, a smile appeared on his face and he slowly withdrew. Then Su Chen went to Kyoto Kuranosuke's office. Kyoto Kuranosuke was in the office at this time. When he saw Su Chen come in, he asked doubtfully, "What's wrong with Su Chen?" "I want to apply for graduation." "What?" Kuranosuke Kyoto wondered if there was something wrong with his ears. "Has Su Chen been enrolled in school for 3 days? Are you actually about to apply for graduation? Are you crazy or is the world crazy? Even the genius Ichimaru Jin took a year to graduate, right? No matter how talented you are, Su Chen, you can graduate in 3 days." "I said I want to apply for graduation." Su Chen could only repeat it. Ahem. Kuranosuke Kyoto cleared his throat. "Okay, you go to a place with me." Kyoto Kuranosuke stood up and took Su Chen to an open space outside. "If you want to apply for graduation, you first need to prove that you have such strength to attack me with all your strength." Kyoto Kuranosuke put one hand behind his back and stretched out the other hand in front of him. He hooked Su Chen and signaled the opponent to attack. Su Chen rolled his eyes and wanted to take action with all his strength. "I'm afraid you will die if you punch yourself. Okay, just give it a try." Hadō number 4, White Thunder. In an instant, a barrel-thick thunder burst out from Su Chen's outstretched fingertips. Shingda Zanganosuke suddenly felt as if his eyes were blind, and the dazzling lightning actually overshadowed the sun in the sky. Not good. He quickly used all his strength to defend. The speed of this move was too fast, and it was also instantaneous. There was no time to dodge. Looking down from the sky, one could see a bolt of thunder emitting from a single point, directly penetrating the entire forest, leaving a scorched black mark as thick as a bucket on the earth. After the dazzling thunder, Kyoto Kuranosuke, whose whole body was charred and his hair was fried, fell to the ground. Only his eyes were still bright, and he was left with deep shock in his heart. How is it possible that Hadō no 4 White Thunder has such great power? Are you sure it is only Hadō number 4 and not Hadō no? 88 inches flying dragon strikes thieves and sky-shaking thunder cannon. Then Su Chen took a few steps forward and asked, Xingtian, are you okay? Kuranosuke Kyoto exhaled a puff of black smoke and stood up. I don't have a big problem. I approved your graduation. Get ready. Let's go to a real-life soul burial internship with the 6th graders in the evening. I need to take a rest now. After saying this, Kuranosuke Kyoto fell down. Alas, it seems that I have struck too hard. The Kaido light on Su Chen's hand lit up, and it didn't take long for Kuranosuke Kyoto to be resurrected with full health. After standing up, Kyoto Kuranosuke's expression changed significantly. He already knew that people like Su Chen were destined to take off, and the small spiritual arts academy could not accommodate such a giant dragon. You should take a rest first. Just go to the main square of the college to gather in the evening. Su Chen nodded and left. Looking at Su Chen's leaving figure, Kyoto Kuranosuke had to sigh that the captain's vision was really unique. The reason why Su Chen's move Hadō no 4 White Thunder is so powerful shows that Su Chen's Reiatsu has reached the captain level. What's even more surprising is Su Chen's control of his own Reiatsu. Back then, Hitsugaya Toshiro also had a captain-level Reiatsu, but it was not easy to control such a powerful force. Not only does Su Chen possess the terrifying Reiatsu, but she is also able to control it so well that it is not surprising that she was able to graduate from the Spiritual Arts Academy in 3 days. But what makes him a little sad is that if Su Chen just studied elementary Kido and then graduated, would it be too much of a waste of talent? However, his single move of Hadō's 4 White Thunder is probably enough to deal with those hollows, and there is no need to learn anything more. Reiatsu is so powerful that it feels cool. Before Su Chen came to the library, he thought to himself, since all the books on Hadō and Kido above number 90 in the library have disappeared, where else can I learn these? Then he quickly thought of a place, the Great Spirit Book Corridor. All the knowledge and information of the Soul Society from ancient times is collected there. The content of Kido, which is only 90 or above, is of course not a problem. Not only that, but you can also see a lot of intelligence and secrets. Aizen Sosuke once entered it to view Urahara Kazuki's past, and thus mastered the technology of directly intervening in the soul to extract foreign matter. If you have the chance, go in and take a look yourself. Central 46. Aizen Sosuke was followed by Tusen Kanami and Ichimaru Jin, and the 3 of them arrived at the door here. 2 Shinigami in black were guarding the door. Not only were these 2 Shinigami, there were dozens of secret guards from the Privacy Mobile team hiding in the darkness around them. It's just that these people have been Aizen Sosuke hypnosis. Open the door. Yes. The 2 Shinigami opened one door after another. After opening 9 doors in a row, the 3 arrived at the location of Central 46. There are 46 seats here. There is a wooden sign with a number written on the table of each seat, from 1 to 46. Behind the sign, there are people sitting one by one watching. They appear to be middle-aged or elderly members. Aizen Sosuke, this is not the place you should be. Do you know what the crime is for trespassing on Central 46? HMPH, stop talking nonsense, where are the secret guards? Come out and take them down yet. Aizen Sosuke pushed up his glasses, and for a moment the glasses reflected light, making it difficult to see his joking smile. Of course I know this is Central 46. I'm here with a request. It seemed that Aizen Sosuke's unwavering tone calmed down the anger of the people in Central 46. What is your request? Aizen Sosuke chuckled and said, please die. Chapter 45 Central 46. Aizen Sosuke, how dare you say such an outrageous thing? Where are the secret guards? Why don't you take action to capture them? Many secret guards suddenly jumped out of the shadows. Those in Central 46 felt a lot more confident after seeing these secret guards. Aizen Sosuke, do you know how many years you will be sentenced? And Ichimaru Jin and Tusen Kanami. Are you also Aizen Sosuke's accomplice? Do it, take them down for us. Yes. The secret guards responded, but not to Aizen Sosuke, but to the members of Central 46. Suddenly screams started one after another. What are you doing? Don't kill me. Soon, Central 46 was filled with blood and turned into a blood-stained place. Aizen Sosuke glanced at the corpses of Central 46 members coldly, as if he were looking at a bunch of trash. You alone are worthy of judging me. Then he turned around, his spotless feather fabric swaying in the wind. Yin, if you want, just wait here. Yes, Captain Aizen. Ichimaru Jin responded respectfully. Tusen Kanami, who had dark brown skin, wore goggles, and had his hair tied into many short dreadlocks, just nodded and did not speak. Yes, were you a little excited when you heard the screams of the people from Central 46 before they died? Aizen Sosuke asked. Tusen Kanami was in a trance. Hundreds of years ago, I knelt at the door of Central 46 and begged to let them execute the murderer of Jie Kuang. However, I couldn't even see their faces, and no one paid attention to me as a Rukongai civilian. Now that these people are all dead, it can be considered a cycle of cause and effect. Tusen Kanami said without emotion. The day when all the nobles die, the day when our new world is established, is the moment when my true happiness comes, and it is also the moment when I should die. I am just afraid that I will one day. Don't worry. The moment your actions are forgiven by others, that is the moment I help you get rid of this endless pain. It can be regarded as one of my few compassions. To talk about the past of Tsusankanami, we have to start hundreds of years ago. Let's start with the death of a woman. Her name is Jie Kuang. Jie Kuang and Tsusankanami have been close friends since childhood. Tsusankanami is a blind man, and no one else wants to see him. Only Go Kuang tolerates him with her tenderness and treats him as a friend. It's just that unlike Tsusankanami, who was an ordinary civilian in Rukongai, Kanami was a genius who had already shown his prominence at the Spiritual Arts Academy. One time, Jie Kuang came over to say goodbye to Tsusankanami. Tsusankanami was sitting on the grass slope. Jie Kuang stood beside him and told his friend, "I'm getting married, and I won't be able to see you often in the future." Although Jie Kuang cannot be seen, Tsusankanami feels that she is a very beautiful woman, because her voice and her heart are very gentle, and she hopes that everyone in this world can be treated well. Since then, Tsusankanami has indeed never heard Jie Kuang's voice again. When he got news about Jie Kuang again, it was the news of her death. He couldn't tolerate the idea of killing a peaceful and gentle man like Jie Kuang. Tsusankanami knelt at the end of the street and screamed at the door of Central 46, Why was the person who killed Jie Kuang not sentenced to death? Please let me see the adults in room 46. Please. Tsusankanami kept begging and reaching out, trying to get past the guards and rush inside. The two guards were already impatient with Tsusankanami's words, and looked at the Rukongai civilian with contempt. They raised their steel sticks and swung them at Tsusankanami. However, Tsusankanami didn't want to hide away, and he had no fear in his heart, because the moment he decided to stand at the door of room 46 and beg, he already had the consciousness to risk his life. But at the moment when the big stick was about to hit Tsusankanami, a man quietly appeared in front of the guards. He did not pull out the Zanpakuto. He just stood there and waved his hand, making the two guards obey. Big stick. Don't be so violent. It's still the mourning period for Miss Jie Kuang. I can persuade him. You can go back to work. The man easily dismissed the guard and took Tsusankanami elsewhere. You must be Yuta Kuang's friend. I saw you at her funeral. You looked very sad at the time, so I stopped the guards. I am a Shinigami and a colleague of Yuta Kuang. What's your name? My name is Tsusankanami. Tsusankanami was extremely sad when he heard this man mention Jie Kuang's name. Although they didn't know the man's name, they all knew Jie Kuang, and they also felt sad for Jie Kuang's death. So Tsusankanami thought that men might be his friends. I heard that Jie Kuang was killed by her husband. Tsusankanami asked. You are right. It is said that her husband wanted to kill a certain Shinigami in the team because of a trivial matter, and Yuta Kuang who tried to persuade him was also killed together. Hearing this, Tsusankanami couldn't help but shed tears in his blind and cloudy eyes. Why did Jie Kuang have to die? Maybe it's because she is a more righteous person than anyone else, and she has the belief in justice and peace in her heart. Tsusankanami agrees very much with what the man said, because during her interaction with Jie Kuang, she learned that Jie Kuang is a pacifist and hopes that everyone in the world can be treated gently, and that is how she treats herself. Although she loves peace, she is too gentle. Maybe she can be more strict and stop her husband when he commits a crime. Hearing this, Tsusankanami couldn't help but said, Do you mean that her wish for people in the world to be gentle to each other is wrong? And I also heard that her husband has not been charged and is still at large. Then the man sighed, Is it because her husband was not charged that you made such a fuss at the door of room 46? Tsusankanami remained silent, acquiescing to this. After a pause, the man continued, Do you know the 5 nobles? Tsusankanami was stunned for a moment. Although he knew the 5 nobles, he only knew that they were the 5 oldest nobles in Seoul society. He didn't know anything else. When he was wondering why the man mentioned this, the man's next words made him Tsusankanami was at a loss. The person who killed Jie Kuang was a member of the 5 nobles. Chapter 46 Sin. Although there are 5 nobles, there are only 4 nobles left now. The person who killed Yuta Kuang was a member of the Tsunayashiro family, one of the 4 great nobles. And her husband is only a member of the Tsunayashiro family branch house. If he were a member of the branch house of the main family, the 46th house would even charge Yuta Kuang with an unwarranted charge of rebellion. Quote. Tsusankanami was full of doubts and said loudly, How could such an incredible thing happen? Although Tsusankanami knew that Yutaka was married to Shinigami, he did not know that she had formed a relationship with the 4 nobles, and in his eyes, the Gote 13th division, which protected the balance, and the 46th chamber, which embodies the truth of the world, inside it was so chaotic and depraved. Tsusankanami was in a daze for a long time, with despair written on his face. The man's voice came again, I understand how you feel, but this is Seoul society. This is the 46th chamber that obeys the advice of the 4 nobles. Whether it is the Kuchiki family, the head of the 4 nobles, or the Shihuan family, which manages various magical weapons, especially the Tsunayashiro family, which manages the Great Spirit Book Corridor, power is more like child's play in their hands. But, Tucson. The man's voice changed, and there was a hint of murderous intent. If one day, you, have the power to revenge against the nobles in room 46, then, should revenge be what we should do? What about her? Does Jie Kuang want you to avenge her? Quote. Although Tucson Konami's heart is full of anger, he also knows that Yuta Kuang does not want to see a world full of hatred. If he tries to take revenge, it will be equivalent to spiritually destroying the world that Yuta Kuang hopes for again. It was another attempt to kill Jie Kuang. So Tucson Konami could only say, I will not take revenge. The man smiled after hearing this. If you, as Jie Kuang's best friend, don't choose revenge, then I won't take revenge either. In an instant, Tucson Konami felt that although the two met for the first time, they were invisibly connected by Yuji Kuang. Even if it was temporary, this man did eliminate the anger in his heart and made him feel that there was no one else in the world except him. There are people who understand Jie Kuang so well and choose to inherit her will, which makes them feel extremely happy and at ease. Then he asked, May I ask your name? The man also said his name with a calm and gentle tone. My name is Tsunayashiro Tokunada. Wait a minute, you. Tucson Konami instantly felt as if his brain had been hit by a bolt from the blue. Yes, I am Yuta's husband, and I am also the person who killed Yuta. This time, Tsunayashiro Tokunada's tone was no longer gentle, but full of ridicule and sarcasm. In an instant, the extinguished anger in Tucson Konami's chest burned again, and seemed to burn him completely to ashes. Kill him. Run away. These two thoughts kept flashing in Tucson Konami's mind. Tsunayashiro Tokunada looked at the painful Tucson Konami with interest. I felt relieved just now when I heard you say, I will not take revenge. Because compared to those who value their status, desperados like you are what scares me the most. If you had just said, I choose revenge, then I would have killed you without hesitation, but fortunately, you, like Jie Kuang, seem to be gentle people who pursue peace. Tucson Konami could no longer think. In fact, he didn't want to listen to this man anymore. Now he threw himself at the man desperately, eager to eat his flesh and drink his blood. But how can a blind man be Shinigami's opponent? Tucson Konami threw himself in the air, followed by severe pain all over his body, as if his internal organs were about to shatter, and he fell to the ground vomiting blood. Tsunayashiro Tokunada looked at Tucson Konami who was lying on the ground and said, Didn't you just say that you would not take revenge? Didn't you already understand my deceased wife's thoughts? Actually, I also hate this world that cannot punish people like me, this world that cannot tolerate Jie Kuang. To say the least, you are not even a Shinigami. You can't even use the Zenkan-Zuki. How can you take revenge on me? Tsunayashiro Tokunada sneered and said to the two guards in room 46, Kill him. Then he left without looking back. Tucson Konami's remaining consciousness understood that no one would stop the guard's stick from swinging this time. He was not afraid of pain, nor was he afraid of death. He was just desperate for the world, a world that could not give Jie Kuang justice. However, at this moment, Tucson Konami noticed that the two guards did not swing at him, but started fighting each other. It was not like they had hit each other wrongly or that they had some conflict before, but more like he mistakenly recognized the other person as himself. Tucson Konami doesn't understand this incredible situation at all. At this moment, a strange footsteps came from behind Tucson Konami. Are you, also a Shinigami? Tucson Konami said in confusion, suppressing the anger in his heart. That's right. Perhaps because he is blind, Tucson Konami can hear a lot from the voice. The owner of this voice is different from the sinister Tsunayashiro Tokunada. He is a person with absolute power, a person who can feel thousands of pressures just by listening to the voice. I am Shinigami, a piece of this boring world. I have a proposal. Do you want to temporarily hand over the hatred in your heart to me? Tucson Konami was a little surprised because he heard full confidence in this man's voice, as if he was talking to a certain ruler. Then the man stretched out his hand to Tucson Konami and said in a gentle tone, My name is Aizen Sosuke, and I am still just an insignificant little Shinigami. Aizen Sosuke understands that it will be painful for Tucson Konami to live another day in this world. Whether it is revenge or no revenge, it is a betrayal of Jie Kuang. If Tucson Konami chooses not to take revenge, then although he follows Yutiko's will, he cannot pass it through his own heart. His best friend was killed but he cannot give her the justice she deserves. Even things like my best friend are happening in the corner of Soul Society every moment and everywhere. Is it an inheritance of Jie Kuang's will to let myself ignore the ravages of these nobles and let the common people endure endless oppression? If Tucson Konami chooses revenge and chooses to follow Aizen Sosuke to build a new world without nobles, then in the process of building this new world, Tucson Konami will have to go against Yumasuke's will and do many bloody things. And when New World was established, that day was also the day Tucson Konami was supposed to die. If in the middle of the journey, the people of Soul Society want to forgive Tucson Konami, and Tucson Konami agrees with them and feels shaken by his choice of revenge, then it means that all Tucson Konami has done so far is the only sin left was the betrayal of Jie Kuang. That outcome was something Tucson Konami couldn't bear. So, please Aizen Sosuke, please kill him before he falters. Chapter 47 Great Spiritual Book Corridor. After saying that, Aizen Sosuke stepped into the underground of Central 46. That's where the Great Spiritual Book Corridor is located. A dark and deep space, like a starry sky in the universe. In this space, there seems to be a mysterious power. This power is not shaken by personal will, but follows some ancient rules and records everything in the world. The way it is recorded is not like words, but more like some kind of record that goes beyond words, but when it is taken out in the form of words that the Shinigami can understand. I saw a long staircase extending out, like a diving board. Aizen Sosuke walked to the end of the stairs, and with the faint light, he could see the endless ocean of knowledge under the wooden board, flickering in uncertain forms. But when Aizen Sosuke observed the vast ocean, the originally ethereal Milky Way collapsed and turned into a huge hexagonal corridor. The corridor was filled with countless densely packed books. In addition to the books, in sight at the end of the road, there are many stone tablets with handwriting on them that exude an ancient and wild atmosphere. Each of these monuments seems to have transcended 10,000 years. But Aizen Sosuke is not here to investigate the history of Soul Society. It's to investigate a person's information. A message from Chen. With a wave of Aizen Sosuke's hand, a book was taken out from the Great Spirit Book Corridor. This book was a compendium similar to a catalog. After finding Chen's name, Aizen Sosuke immediately let go of the summary, and it automatically fell into the spiritual book corridor below, where it was stored where it should be stored. Then another book surfaced, and Aizen Sosuke reached out to pick it up and read it. Chen first appeared in Rukongai District 80. He turned the spirit into water to quench his thirst, and used the spirit to condense the sword to kill. As soon as he read Chen's message, Aizen Sosuke couldn't help but shrink his pupils. The spirit sun turns into water, the spirit sun condenses the sword. These abilities to manipulate external spirits to fight are clearly the power of the Quincy. Do you have both the power of a Shinigami and the power of a Quincy? You must know that the power of Shinigami and the power of Quincy are opposite existences, and they can actually be in Chen's body at the same time. This means that the goal of existence beyond Shinigami, that can only be achieved by using Hogyoku, was achieved by Chen from the beginning. Aizen Sosuke couldn't help but reveal an excited smile. Chen, I'm really becoming more and more interested in you, maybe. Then the powerful Reiatsu was revealed, and was introduced to Seraiti by Kyoraku Shunsui and Hitsugaya Toshiro, and joined the Spiritual Arts Academy. The abilities it has demonstrated include. Aizen Sosuke checked Chen's records bit by bit, but was surprised to find that Chen was a person without a past. You can't even record your past in the Great Spirit Book Corridor. Chen, where are you from? Not only can it make Hogyoku restless, there is even no record of him in the Great Spirit Book Corridor. Chen. I can't wait to see you again. In addition, Aizen Sosuke also discovered that Chen learned the Six-Wand Light Prison after watching Kyoraku Shunsui use it once. Not only Kido, but also Kaido and Shunpo. Could it be said that Chen has some kind of ability to learn quickly? Chen watched Aizen Sosuke perform Kyoka Suigetsu, and then went to the Spiritual Arts Academy library and hypnosis 2 guards. How terrible. Aizen Sosuke's pupils shrank. Unexpectedly, Chen, you actually understood the hypnosis ability after watching my Kyoka Suigetsu. With such heaven-defying understanding, no wonder even Hogyoku desires you endlessly. Maybe Chen has understood not only Kyoka Suigetsu's hypnosis ability, but he may even be able to crack his own Kyoka Suigetsu. Aizen Sosuke slowly put down the book in his hand and fell back into the corridor of the Great Soul Book. He couldn't help but chuckle. Maybe you are the only one who can stand at the same height as me except Kurosaki Ichigo, who has not yet grown up. People. After saying that, Aizen Sosuke turned around and walked towards the beginning of the stairs, where the white light dissipated, preparing to leave the Great Spirit Book Corridor. With a bang, the door of the Great Spiritual Book Corridor was closed. After closing it, an invisible and ethereal figure seemed to rise from the river and glanced at Aizen Sosuke, who was leaving. Aizen Sosuke returns to Central 46. Ichimaru Jin watched Aizen Sosuke come out of the Great Soul Book Corridor and couldn't help but asked with some confusion, Captain Aizen, is there anything necessary to enter the Great Soul Book Corridor? Just to inquire about a person's information. Ichimaru Jin couldn't help but squint his eyes. Who on earth could make Captain Aizen care so much? You will see him at night. Evening fell as promised. Chen came to the square where the Spiritual Arts Academy is located. There are already dozens of 6th graders gathered here. And in front of everyone, a boundary gate has been arranged. There were 3 leaders in front of these students. 2 men and a woman. The woman stood in the middle, and 2 men surrounded her. Basically, the 2 men were talking, while the woman just nodded slightly, and it seemed that her identity was not simple. Please submit your student ID card for review and receive your mobile phone. After seeing Chen's student ID card, her black hair, about 30 to 40 centimeters long, was tied into a high ponytail behind her head, revealing her as white as jade neck, with a slender zanpakuto hanging on her waist. The woman, who looked a little cold and aloof, frowned. What's going on? Why are first-year students included in the soul burial internship list? A man behind the woman named Chungjo Meng asked, Jinghong, do you want him to go back? Another man named Nagisa Yu said, since he dares to come, he must have something special, so why not come and follow him to have a look? Anyway, with us on this trip, there will definitely be no danger. Jinghong Pearl took a look at the list and found that Su Chen's name was indeed on it, and she was still a first-year student. However, if Su Chen is allowed to go back at this time, it will mean that his soul burial internship has failed, which will be very detrimental to his future graduation. Jinghong Mingzu thought for a while and said to Su Chen, you will follow me the whole time and you don't need to do anything. Do you understand? Su Chen didn't nod or shake his head. Jinghong Mingzu ignored Su Chen and continued to deal with the affairs, and was soon ready. After everyone passed through the boundary gate, they came to a dark place. There are dark purple and almost black walls of mucus on both sides, and through some gaps, dry bones can be seen in the mucus. Although they had already learned about breaking boundaries in class, seeing it with their own eyes still gave some girls goosebumps. Go quickly, don't get caught up in the detention. The cold voice of Jinghong Pearl spread to everyone's ears, and dozens of people rushed towards the entrance of the real world. Su Chen walked behind, wanting to experience what it felt like to be restrained. Unexpectedly, just when I was about to reach out and touch Juliu, I was grabbed by a cold hand. Chapter 48 The Shocking Pearl. Jinghong Mingzu grabbed Su Chen's hand, stopping his intention to touch Juliu, and pulled him forward. Chengzhou Meng and Nagisa Yu glanced at Su Chen, and then at Jinghong Mingzu's hand holding Su Chen's hand. They didn't know what they were thinking. Jinghong Mingzu's identity is naturally not simple. Although he is a civilian, he is a genius. He has passed the examination of the second team's chief officer before he graduated. As soon as he graduates, he can join the second team and become a chief officer. Moreover, she is young and beautiful, so only Chengzhou Meng and Nagisa Yu are so attentive to Jinghong Pearl. Unexpectedly, neither of them succeeded, but it was Su Chen who suddenly appeared and took the hand of Jinghong Pearl. Not long after, everyone followed the hell butterfly who led the way, passed through a ray of white light, and came to the present world. It was already night in the world at this time, but 5-color neon lights flashed, a large number of 4- or 5-story residential buildings stretched out, there were many skyscrapers, and Ferris wheels emitting colorful light, making Karakura town it looks very lively. After leaving the dark and oppressive world, the cool wind blew on their faces, making everyone's breathing easier. Jinghong Mingzu let go of Su Chen's hand and didn't say anything to Su Chen. Maybe in her eyes, Su Chen only wanted to touch Ji Yu Lu out of curiosity. Everyone, don't move for now. I'll set up a barrier with the 2 seniors, and you will conduct soul burial practice inside the barrier to ensure safety. Yes. After hearing everyone's response, Jinghong Mingzu, Chengzhou Meng and Nagisa Yu used Shunpo to leave and go to set up the barrier. After Jinghong Mingzu left, everyone couldn't help but start talking. Wow, Senior Jinghong is really so beautiful. The cool and cold feeling makes people love and hate him at the same time. There is a feeling that the more unattainable the icebergs and mountains are, the more attractive he is. Indeed, Senior Jinghong's talent is beyond our reach. To us, she is like the moon in the sky, which we can only watch from a distance. The most important thing is that Senior Jinghong still cares about us civilians. He seems cold, but in fact he just saved the first-year student, otherwise he would be in danger if he was detained. Everyone was chatting without any precautions, but what they didn't realize was that above them, there were 3 Shinigami in black suspended in the air, watching them. Aizen Sosuke lifted up his black cloak. The technology of this cloak can completely shield Reiatsu so that they will not be noticed. Ichimaru Jin squinted his eyes and looked down. Captain Aizen, this soul burial internship is a good opportunity for us to observe Su Chen's strength. Are we still going to throw in ordinary hollows as before? No. Aizen Sosuke shook his head, with a slight smile in his eyes under the moonlight, put in a few more. Jillian-level Manos Grande is nothing to him, just an appetizer. The first is the lowest level of ordinary hollows formed after their corruption. Generally speaking, Shu will devour human souls in order to escape pain and fill his lost heart. It is also an ordinary, Zheng. What he likes most is the souls of people close to him during his lifetime. When this, soul-devouring hunger, reaches the ultimate level, Shu will not be able to help but devour the same soul. The hollows who wanted to get hollows souls naturally gathered together to devour each other. Afterwards, the souls merged and lost individual consciousness, becoming Jillian, who was as big as a mountain but moved slowly. If in the process of devouring each other, one of the hollows' abilities and ego far exceeds that of the other hollows, there will be a hollow who still retains his own self even after evolving into Jillian. Jillian is the lowest level Manos Grande, but her strength is obviously not comparable to that of ordinary hollows. Due to her tall and burly stature, her defense power is greatly improved, and ordinary swords are basically unable to cause damage, and it usually requires a deputy captain level figure to deal with it. Ejukas are mid-level Manos Grande, and generally require captain level characters to deal with them. High Manos Grande is Vasto Lord, possessing powerful abilities that are above the level of Captain Shinigami and few in the entire Hueco Mundo. Legend has it that there is an ancient Manos Grande, whose abilities are even more terrifying and can even destroy the world. Ichimaru Jin was a little curious, who was the him that Captain Aizen was referring to. It seems that Aizen Sosuke knows him very well. Su Chen took a breath of the air of this world. The concentration of souls in the present world is not low, and it is not much different from Soul Society. Although it is similar, it feels familiar to Su Chen. I just wonder if Aizen Sosuke will be doing some tricks behind the scenes in Soul Burial Internship this time. Then Su Chen glanced at the sky. Although he didn't feel any special Reiatsu, perhaps out of an intuition, he vaguely felt that this Soul Burial Internship would not be so peaceful. It didn't take long for the 3 people from Jinghongmingzu to finish setting up the barrier and return. Alright, let's all work together in teams of 3 to take care of each other's actions. If any dangerous incident occurs, we will use our mobile phones to contact you. Su Chen looked at his communication phone. It didn't look much different from today's mobile phones. There was a display screen on which some software could be controlled by touch. Su Chen, just follow us and don't get lost. Jinghongmingzu turned her head and said to Su Chen. Everyone should disperse now. As long as we can purify 1 void or bury 3 souls, the mission has been completed. Then everyone dispersed into groups of 3 to perform tasks. The 3 people from Jinghongmingzu are also heading in a certain direction. Su Chen had nothing to do, and the Soul Burial Internship was not difficult for him, so he followed him and took a look, walking on the edge to observe the enchantment technique. He was quite interested in this enchantment technique. Soon, the 3 of Jinghongmingzu encountered a void, which still seemed to have a human form. A black 2-meter-tall body, a white mask, densely packed teeth each of which is more than 10 centimeters long, and the hollow in the chest is dark. After seeing the 3 Shinigami, the hollow let out an excited roar. Ah 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 ah. Shinigami's soul is filled with powerful spiritual power, which is an excellent tonic for Kion to escape pain. The Shu immediately rushed towards Nagase Yu. Although Nagase Yu was facing a hollow for the first time, he seemed calm on the surface, but he was still a little flustered in his heart. The oppressive feeling of facing an inhuman creature was something he had never experienced in the Spiritual Arts Academy before. Pulling out the Zanpakuto from his waist, he slashed it at Kion's arm. This virtual creature subconsciously dodged the attack. The 2 soon started fighting, and after a dozen moves, Kaoru Yumi also chanted the Kido incantation, and as the chant ended, Hadō number 31, Red Fire Cannon. A fireball about half a meter in diameter flew out, heading towards the virtual attack, and exploded on the ground with a bang, scattering a large amount of smoke. After the smoke dissipated, although the Shu was burned in many places and bleeding everywhere, the superposition of physical pain and mental pain seemed to further stimulate his madness. Ho ha ho ha ho ha ho. He yelled and rushed towards the boat Dream. However, at this moment, a snow-white sword light flashed. Chapter 49 Jillian. The Jinghong pearl fell from the sky, and the high ponytail behind him flew in the strong wind. The Zanpakuto in his hand turned into a snow-white sword light, splitting the hollow into 2, and the purified hollow dissipated into the air as a spirit. Reincarnated and went to Soul Society. Awesome, worthy of Jinghong. Jinghongmingzu glanced at the 2 of them and said, you are too relaxed. Nagase Yu patted Chungjo Meng on the shoulder, what are you afraid of? These hollows are no match for us at all, don't you think so? In the following actual battles, the 3 of them eliminated several more voids. Su Chen took this opportunity to understand the barrier technique. The enchantment technique also has different functions depending on the enchantment conditions. The general barrier technique takes on the shape of a sphere, enveloping both heaven and earth. It can isolate vision, sound, etc., so that humans outside the barrier cannot detect what is happening inside the barrier, and people without spiritual power cannot pass through. Only Shinigami, hollows, Quincy, etc. with spiritual power can pass through. To ensure that Shinigami's actions in this world will not be noticed by humans. But what Su Chen is a little curious about is, if the barrier technique evolves, can it form a domain with combat capabilities? If you have the chance, you can try to research it. Soon, Jinghongmingzu and others had purified several voids. Arrive at the scheduled meeting point and prepare to return to Soul Society. Soon after, other teams also gathered here one after another. Jinghongmingzu took out the list and called the names. Team number 1. Anyone who clicks on the team title will raise their hands. Team 13. As a result, when I called team number 13, no one responded for a long time. At this moment, there was a beeping sound coming from the communication tool. When I opened it, a relaxed and pleasant voice came. Senior Jinghong, we have gained a lot this time, so we are a little late. We are already on our way back. As soon as possible. Hey, we know. However, at this moment, a frightening sense of oppression suddenly came. Everything around them seemed to be distorted, and everyone's pupils widened and their hearts tightened. What's this? Such a terrifying sense of oppression. Could it be? Everyone slowly turned their heads and saw a huge mountain-like figure not far away, tearing the night apart with both hands as if it was blocking the sky and the sun, and squeezed out from the dark night. Its huge body is hundreds of meters tall, and its body is shaped like a triangle, with a small head and a large body. But its head alone is several meters huge, far exceeding the size of Zanpakuto, and the hole in its chest is more than 10 meters in diameter. His face was covered with a white mask, with a long nose sticking out from the mask, and a circle of long spikes on his neck. Big. Manos Grande. How? Why is Manos Grande here? Jillian level Manos Grande needs at least a deputy captain level expert to deal with. And the sound of painful screams came from the communication, and it was completely no longer as relaxed and comfortable as before. Ah 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 ah. Help. Help. Help us. Accompanied by a huge sound of wind and hitting the wall, it seemed that the communication tool fell to the ground and was smashed into pieces. After a few hissing noises in the receiver, the signal was cut off. Everyone saw that Manos Grande's tongue stretched out 100 meters long, rolled up the 3 Shinigami on the ground, and swallowed them into his mouth. And their communication tools also fell to the ground and shattered into pieces. Jinghong Mingzhu frowned deeply. Manos Grande's strength is completely different from that of the interns in front of him. She quickly used the communication tool to contact Saraide's rescue team, the 5th team. The current location is number 3541, attacked by Manos Grande, requesting support. Then he ordered behind him. You run, I'll stop it. After leaving the order, a man rushed towards Manos Grande in front of him. After receiving the order to escape, most of the students ran away driven by fear. However, he could only watch as the Jinghong Pearl's figure jumped out like an arrow without hesitation, but his own feet seemed to be rooted, unable to take a step. Cold sweat continued to flow from his body, and the hairs all over his body stood up. The figure of Manos Grande covered the moon. As it slowly approached, the area on the earth that was originally illuminated by the moonlight was gradually eroded by shadows. It was like my heart was being swallowed up by fear bit by bit. We obviously know that the strongest people here are Jinghong Pearl, Nagisa Yu and himself. The 3 of them are the Shinigami leaders this time. It is obviously the task of the 3 of them, but Jinghong Pearl takes over it alone. Want to help her. But the scene of the 3 Shinigami being swallowed just now replayed in my mind repeatedly. If I stepped forward to fight, would it end like this? He didn't want to be devoured. Run away, run away, run away, run away. However, what he could not bear more than running away was his own cowardice. He didn't even have the courage to swing his sword at the strong man. If you don't try hard, who will know the result? Chungjo Meng gritted her teeth and tightened her grip on Zanpakuto around her waist. I don't know if it was a moment of enthusiasm or some other reason, but I rushed forward with a dream in the boat. Nagisa Yu also rushed forward. Jinghong Mingzhu saw this scene and cursed. Idiots, are you two looking for death? As if they didn't hear it, the 2 of them pulled out their Zanpakuto and slashed at Jillian's feet. However, their swords could not even break through Manos Grande's defense. Some of them may have been slashed with a few forceful swords, but the damage caused by their Zanpakuto was just the damage caused by nail scissors to Manos Grande, and was not fatal at all. With just one roll of Manos Grande's tongue, the boating dream and Nagisa River are rolled up on the tongue and brought into the mouth to devour this rare delicacy. When he was caught by Manos Grande's tongue, Chungjo Meng realized that he was no match for Manos Grande. The tongue was like a spring that tightly bound him. Not to mention waving Zanpakuto, he couldn't even break free from the restraints. It can't be done because the power gap between the 2 sides is too big. He suddenly felt deeply regretful. Really will die. It would have been better if I had known how to run away. Even if my heart hurts when I think about it in the future, it will become numb after a long time. At this moment, a silver-white knife flashed, and Manos Grande's tongue was cut into 2 pieces. Ho ha ho ha ho ha ho. After a section of his tongue was cut off, Manos Grande's eyes under the mask seemed to be stained with a trace of blood as he screamed in pain. The boat dream and Nagisa Yu naturally fell off with the severed tongue. The 2 hurriedly struggled to get out, but even the severed tongue had strong muscle strength and couldn't get free for a while. Jinghong Mingzhu cut off the tongues that bound them with one powerful stroke. However, at this moment, a bright red light penetrated her chest completely. Chapter 50. A knife without an opponent. A large amount of blood spurted out from his chest. Jinghong Mingzhu looked at the blood spilling from her chest in shock. She didn't seem to react yet. It seems that he has not accepted this reality. Did he die so easily? There was a pop. She spat out another mouthful of blood and slowly fell down. And what penetrated her body was a black-red sarrow. The sarrow not only penetrated her body, but also extended out, destroying the buildings in front of her. Chungjo Meng and Nagisa Yu also looked at this scene in disbelief. Run quickly. If Jinghong Pearl is still alive, the 3 of us may still have a chance to win. Now that she is dead, the 2 of us are no match at all. Nagisa Yu took the boating dream, and the 2 quickly escaped together. Plop. Jinghong Pearl fell to the ground. The world in front of me seemed to have turned into half of the world, and the remaining half was blocked by the ground and could not be seen. Ah, am I going to die like this? I thought that my life had just begun, and I would join the 13th Division and become a vice captain through hard work. Unexpectedly, it ended here easily. But this is probably the best ending. When she met Manos Grande alone, she already expected to die. The current situation is no different from what he expected. He only sacrificed himself. The other Shinigami should be fine as long as they wait for the rescue team to arrive. Just then, she heard footsteps. The footsteps were leisurely, casual, and leisurely, as if walking in the back garden in the afternoon sunshine, walking leisurely and admiring the scenery. Who is it? Who is so disobedient and runs back again? He just needs to wait where he is and wait for rescue. It's really a death that doesn't make anyone feel at ease. Jinghong Mingzu opened her eyes. First she saw a pair of mango shoes, then a slender body, and then she looked up to see a beautiful face. It's Su Chen. Hey, didn't you hear the order? Run. Su Chen did not respond to him and still approached Manos Grande. Jinghong Mingzu felt a little mixed. Why does Su Chen come back? Is it to save yourself? Why should he save himself? Damn it, you guy, it's really, you can't let people die in peace. Jinghong Mingzu struggled to stand up from the ground, even though the pain in her chest kept reminding her that her body had reached its limit. But between death, she seemed to have fallen deeper into her soul. Therefore, I was only a hair away from Shikai and successfully realized that state. Instantly, the Reiatsu on her body exploded, forming a raging wind. Hold the Zanpakuto with both hands and stretch forward. Fly by, dragonfly. In an instant her Zanpakuto disappeared. The night seemed to freeze for an instant. In the frozen space, a green bamboo dragonfly flapped its wings across Manos Grande's body. Very light and soft. It was like a hand caressing Manos Grande's body. In this feeling, I just want to be intoxicated endlessly. But the next moment, the frozen space returned to its original state, and with a pop, like tofu being cut in half, a crack suddenly appeared in the middle of Manos Grande's body, dividing it into two halves. It was like a building was divided into two halves, with a void in the middle. In the void, Manos Grande's spiritual core was like a bead. A crack appeared on the bead, and then more and more cracks appeared. Eventually it exploded. As the spiritual core fragmented, Manos Grande's body also turned into spiritual particles and dissipated bit by bit, and the hundreds of voids that made up it, as well as the souls it swallowed, were also reincarnated and went to Soul Society. The bamboo dragonfly flew back to Jinghong Pearl's hand and transformed into a Zanpakuto again. At this time, a faint voice came over, not bad Shikai. However, Jinghong Mingzu could no longer stand and fell into Su Chen's arms. Kaido light condensed in Su Chen's hand, and soon the injured area on Jinghong Mingzu's chest began to grow, and the recovery was complete. At the same time, the surrounding night once again tore a dozen holes. In the torn space, more than a dozen Jillians crawled out and surrounded Su Chen and Jinghong Pearl. Su Chen placed the Jinghong Pearl against the wall, then pulled out the chopper and touched her head. You have a good rest and leave the rest to me. It was the first time for Jinghong Mingzu to have her head touched, and she was a little stunned for a moment. Su Chen watched blankly as he pulled out his Zanpakuto, and then saw his Zanpakuto turn into a moon-like silver color. Reflecting the clear and beautiful moonlight. His movements are also extremely graceful. Like cutting tofu forward, those Manos Grande who in his eyes needed to use all his strength to eliminate, were in his hands, like chopping melons and vegetables, one by one. Wherever his Zanpakuto passed, not a single Manos Grande could withstand a blow. Is this really still a first grader? With such doubts, Jinghong Mingzu fell into a deep sleep. Above the void, the three Aizen Sosuke witnessed this scene. Ichimaru Jin couldn't help but said in surprise, wow, Su Chen's Zanpakuto is really extraordinary. It's so sharp that neither the building nor the Manos Grande can stop him from taking a single blow. Tusen Kanami also nodded. Although he couldn't see it, his perception ability had been improved to the point where he could judge things from everything around him. His Zanpakuto is indeed extremely sharp. Could it be said that his Shikai is a sharp Zanpakuto? Aizen Sosuke stared at Su Chen's Zanpakuto. Wherever the silver-white sword light passed, it was not the bodies of those Manos Grande that were cut off, but the space seemed to be cut off together. Even those Manos Grande released the moment Sero touched the blade, it also separated and turned into two streams rushing towards the side. Aizen Sosuke said solemnly, Su Chen's Zanpakuto can be explained not only by the word, sharp, but also to the extent of, absolute cutting. Quote. Anything that stands in front of that Zanpakuto will be absolutely cut off. Even your Zanpakuto or my Kido can't stop that sword at all. In other words, there is no opponent in front of that knife. Chapter 51 The Power of the Quincy. What? Ichimaru Jin and Tusen Kanami couldn't help but exclaimed. Oh my, that Zanpakuto is really scary. I really don't want to be Su Chen's opponent, otherwise his Zanpakuto alone would be extremely difficult to deal with, and it would be over in close combat with Su Chen. Ichimaru Jin squinted his eyes. I couldn't help but sigh. When the time comes, my Shinso will be cut off section by Su Chen. It's scary to think about it. Ichimaru Jin said jokingly. Captain Aizen, why don't we let Su Chen be our teammate, or use a honey trap against him? In short, it's too difficult to fight head-on. At this time, the situation below seemed to have changed. Su Chen chopped, and found that cutting grass was just his own Shinigami power. So what about my own Quincy power? Can I also turn into a Zanpakuto? Just in time to get these dummy test knives. Su Chen slid behind him. Stretching the left hand forward, Ling Zi controls and activates. Slowly, he imagined a Quincy sword. In an instant, a change occurred. The spirits in the atmosphere gathered crazily towards Su Chen's left hand. Not only the spiritual beings around here gathered, but all the spiritual beings in Karakura town were drained out, and then they turned into the Zanpakuto with the power of the Quincy in Su Chen's hand. What kind of ability is that, which requires so much energy? Aizen Sosuke's pupils shrank. Ichimaru Jin's eyes narrowed so much that he could barely see. Su Chen, what are you doing? Tusen Kanami said. The surrounding spirits are surging. Aizen Sosuke looked at the black spiritual power in Su Chen's hand. Could it be? The students of the Spiritual Arts Academy who were escaping were all stunned. What is going on? What happened? Why can an ordinary soul burial internship become so terrifying? Such a huge reaction of spirit particles, all converging in one direction, it feels like my body is being torn apart, turning into spirit particles and gathering away. Who is he? What ability is he? Did Manos Grande appear at the level of Ijuka's or Vasto Lord? The convenience store is brightly lit. The clerk held a portable scanner in one hand and the product in the other. The red light scanned the black barcode on the product, making a crisp beeping sound. Hello, Chungwei Erkion. Wearing a white shirt, tie and glasses, Ishida Ryu was about to pay. But at this moment, he felt an astonishing wave of spirit energy, and his pupils suddenly shrank. Without time to pay attention to anything else, he rushed out. I saw that the spirit particles in the atmosphere were completely converging in a certain direction and turned into a huge invisible spirit storm. What's the situation? It seems there's a strong wind. Residents above the convenience store closed their windows. Ishida Ryu was deeply shocked. As a Quincy, he is deeply aware of the terrifying abilities required to activate such a huge amount of atmospheric spiritual power. Who is this person and what is he doing? Do you actually need such a large number of souls? Such a powerful force might be enough to destroy the entire Karakura town, right? No, I have to go and see. Ishida Ryu originally wanted to use the spirit particles in the atmosphere to use his flying sickle to rush forward, but he didn't expect that the spirit particles in the atmosphere could not be condensed at all. Unexpectedly, under that powerful spirit sun storm, because all the spirit suns belonged to that person, my own strength was not enough to snatch the atmospheric spirit suns from his hands. This frightened Ishida Ryu even more. This ability is really terrifying. You must know that this place is thousands of meters away from there, so he can no longer mobilize the atmospheric spirits. Ishida Ryu could only run towards that place. Kurosaki family. The girl with short yellow hair and a hairpin in her hair held a dinner plate with simple green vegetable noodles in her hands. She knocked on the door of her brother Kurosaki Ichigo's room and said, Oni-chan, I ordered the noodles and let's eat together. Late night snack. A male voice came from inside, I won't eat, Yuzu. Okay. Kurosaki Yuzu, wearing warm pajamas, walked to the first floor with a dinner plate. There is another girl on the first floor with short black hair and a smooth forehead. She spreads her legs and sits on a chair. Her white jade feet protrude from the slippers and sway gently. Her eyes and eyelids droop lazily. I just said that my brother doesn't know how to eat, so give it to me. After getting the noodles, he quickly eliminated them. The noodles under Yuzu are just delicious. Hehe. Kurosaki Yuzu took the bowl and went to clean it. Seeing that his twin sister liked the noodles he made, he felt very happy. At this time, Kurosaki Ichigo was sitting on the bed, looking at the reaction of Reiko outside the window in surprise. What's going on? A large amount of spiritual power is gathering in one direction. What happened? Not just Kurosaki Ichigo. Kurosaki Izshin, who was in the room, also felt the terrifying spirit reaction. Kurosaki Izshin looked up at the sky. Is it made by Ishida Ryuzan? No. With his strength, he shouldn't be able to do this. Although Kurosaki Izshin no longer cares about these things to a large extent, as a human being, he has been calm for so long. He did not expect that it would only take a moment to break such calm in front of a truly strong person. In a classic villa, in a certain room, the four walls are covered with bookshelves, and the bookshelves are filled with books. The floor of the room is covered with red carpet, and the bookshelves are slightly faded and look like they have been there for many years. On a desk, a man was studying something, concentrating on something. However, at this moment, the tip of his pen suddenly paused, and the ink suddenly spread on the paper, making a circle wet. However, he no longer cared about this and stood up from the table. Ishida Ryujin got up from his desk and opened the window. The strong wind blew the window and hit the bracket with a bang. He widened his eyes and looked in a certain direction under the night. Ordinary people couldn't see it, but as a pure-blood Quincy, how could he not know? This kind of power, could it be Yawatch? No. This smell is wrong. Who on earth can have such a powerful Quincy power? Urahara store. Tessai Tsukubishi, who was tall, wearing a white t-shirt, and the strong muscles on his body made the t-shirt very full. He had a beard and black-rimmed glasses and said in shock. What is going on? The whole Karakura has the town's spiritual power been mobilized. Urahara Kazuki, who has short light blonde hair, wears a green and white hat, and wears wooden clogs, his usually lazy eyes condensed, and he pressed the brim of his hat. You must know that Karakura town is a place of heavy spiritual power, which means the place where spiritual power gathers. Power. This person actually gathered the spiritual power of the entire Karakura town. It's really not simple. A black cat, completely black with only one pair of very shining eyes, said solemnly, it will become clear if you go and take a look. The flat-chested girl with blonde hair and wearing slippers kicked Hiroko Shinji in the face while he was doing a handstand. When did you not hurry over and do handstands when such a big thing happened? Hi. Hiroko Shinji, who has a yellow girl's hair and bangs trimmed to the left, stood up, picked up a pair of headphones and a player, put the player into his pocket, hung the two headphones into his ears, and placed his right hand on the player. Pressing the button, pleasant jazz music came immediately, and he walked towards the window with his hands in his pockets. Yurihara Kazuki, Shihuin Yoruichi, Tessai Tsukabishi, Kurosaki Isshin, Kurosaki Ichigo, Ishida Ryuzen, Ishida Ryu, Hiroko Shinji, Surugaki Hiyori. Although everyone came first and then later, they all gathered towards where Su Chen was. Chapter 52, God. In an ordinary room on the third floor, Inoue Orihime and Arasawa Tatsuki were sitting on the pink carpet. It's just that the sitting postures of the two are slightly different. The plump Inoue Orihime is sitting upright in the traditional style with her knees together. She looks gentle and intellectual. There is a hairpin on her orange hair that was given to her by her brother. Arasawa Tatsuki, who has a flat chest, sits in a very casual posture, with one foot under her buttocks and one foot stretched forward. The two seem to be chatting about something, and Inoue Orihime couldn't help but smile. At this time, a strong wind suddenly blew outside the window. Inoue Orihime walked to the window, closed the swinging window, and couldn't help but glanced in the direction of Kurosaki Ichigo's house. I wonder what Ichigo is doing at this time. Ginjo Kugo, who was eating a bowl of ramen at a ramen restaurant, suddenly felt a gust of wind, blowing the spicy ramen soup onto his face, and the silver cross chain hanging around his neck swayed in the wind. After being stunned for a moment, he said, I really can't even worry about eating ramen. In desperation, I put down my chopsticks and could only eat half of my beloved ramen. When I stood up and walked to the door, a woman had already walked out of the dessert shop, holding a donut she had just bought and eating it in small bites. The woman wore a white velvet hat with two wide pieces of fluff on her head, a black short skirt, and black over-the-knee boots, revealing a hint of absolute space between the skirt and the skirt, as white as snow. The chest is white lace underwear, which stands out from the jet black clothes. The most eye-catching thing is her purple-red twin ponytails, which sway gently as she moves, which is very cute. You are still so slow. According to me, you don't want to eat the ramen. Riruka, I am your Shangdong, right? Is there anyone who talks to Shangdong like this? Ginjo Kugo said helplessly. Oh, we are just comrades, not superiors and subordinates. Dufeng Raluka's big eyes with dark eyelashes slightly narrowed, with a look of arrogance, and she lifted her soft ponytail with her right hand, curling her hair around her thin white wrists, revealing her flawless neck. Tsukishima Hidekiro, who was on the roof, held a book in one hand and said expressionlessly, the book says that your behavior is called Tsunere. Who is a Tsunere? Dufeng Raluka immediately stamped her feet and cursed. Ginjo Kugo's figure shuttled to the end of the street in an instant, looking up at the spirit storm in the sky. It's time to go, let's go see that mysterious figure. In a cold and heartless basement. The dim blue light seemed to have no warmth at all, and seemed to freeze people's hearts. A woman wears a white shirt, a tight black suit jacket, a belt around her waist, the middle of the belt is fixed with a gold medal, and a white knitted scarf around her neck. The woman looked to be in her mid-20s, with a proud figure that held her shirt tight. There was a slanted golden cross hanging on her left breast. At this time, she collected some powerful spiritual material into a black box, with an indifferent expression on her face. It seemed that it was just a machine without emotions, a piece of white paper without color, and nothing in the world could make it. She has the wave of silk. Dao Yugen Aura raised her eyes to look at the spirit storm outside, and there was still no emotion in her dead pupils. Su Chen was also a little surprised. When the Zansao is concentrated, the power of Zansao as a Shinigami comes from the inside out, so it does not cause much fluctuation in the outside world. It was different when condensing the root eradication. As a Quincy's sword, it was condensing the external spiritual power. It was like turning into a huge Lizzie storm and condensing towards where he was. This scene is quite similar to when I first appeared in Soul Society. I am afraid that everyone with psychic powers in Karakura town was alarmed. Between Su Chen's left hand, a pitch-black Quincy blade slowly condensed out. As soon as it appeared, people felt that it was an extremely terrifying knife. Because it seemed that even the light was obliterated by that knife. In the moment of condensation, Su Chen already knew the name of the knife and its history. The sword transformed from the Quincy's power as eradicate, and its ability as destruction. Just like the Quincy clan's abilities, the souls killed by this sword will not be reincarnated and will be completely destroyed. It can be said to be an extremely terrifying knife. The blade was dark and slender, and there was a ring of hand protection extending from the handle. Looking at this knife is like seeing a deep black hole. And when Su Chen held the two knives, the Reiatsu on his body also exploded exponentially. Under that terrifying Reiatsu, the surrounding buildings collapsed and shattered bit by bit. None of those Jillian-level Manos Grande could stand at all, and the terrifying pressure caused them to crawl directly to the ground. Then he was directly crushed and purified into a spirit child, and he was reincarnated into Soul Society. Seeing the purified spirits, Chen became a little interested. The power of the void, backquote. Then he stretched out his hand, and under Lingxi's control, the imaginary power gathered in Su Chen's palm. You try to understand the power of the void. The power of emptiness is the power to devour souls. However, Su Chen didn't bother to swallow these Jillian souls, so he didn't try it for the time being. Not only that, after condensing the Quincy's power behind the sword, the terrifying Reiatsu almost turned into substance, condensing on Su Chen's eyes. At this moment, Su Chen's eyes emitted a blue light that belonged to the Quincy, which was gorgeous and dazzling. Su Chen's perception has improved to an unknown extent, and he can still detect even the existence standing behind him. Now he no longer needs to see things with his own eyes to perceive their existence. Because every spirit exchange and flow in the outside atmosphere cannot escape his perception. You successfully comprehended the eye of the spirit sun. Close black lens bracket. At this moment, even Aizen and Sosuke, who had clothes that completely shielded Reiatsu, were easily noticed by Su Chen. So he turned his head, glanced at the three Aizen Sosuke, and showed a faint smile. The blue pupils looked at the three of them as if they had transcended time and space. At the moment when Su Chen Reiatsu surged, both Ichimaru Jin and Tusen Kanami in the sky couldn't help but look shocked. Tusen Kanami said in shock, "What's going on? This ability to control external spiritual beings clearly belongs to the Quincy. Could it be said that Su Chen has the blood of the Quincy?" The storm transformed by the powerful Reiatsu caused Ichimaru Jin and Tusen Kanami to keep retreating. They could not even get close to Su Chen. They stretched out their hands to block their eyes. Captain Haori screamed in the strong wind, "Oh, really? It's amazing. Su Chen's Reiatsu made our captains feel the pressure of ultimate." Only Aizen Sosuke still had his hands in his pockets and did not take a step back. It seems that Su Chen has discovered our situation. Ichimaru Jin couldn't help but said, "How is this possible? Doesn't this clothes have the function of completely shielding Reiatsu?" Aizen Sosuke chuckled, "Theoretically, this clothes can indeed completely shield Reiatsu, but Su Chen's power has exceeded your imagination. The Quincy's power originally came from the Spirit King. Now that Su Chen has the Quincy blade, it is almost equivalent to possessing part of the Spirit King's power. I'm afraid that in his eyes now, every spiritual power in the outside atmosphere can be easily calculated and analyzed. In this state, every Lingxi is equivalent to Su Chen's eyes. No one can hide from Lingxi's detection, and no one can hide from Su Chen's detection." Aizen Sosuke glanced at the pitch-black knife in Su Chen's hand, with a slightly crazy smile in his eyes. The ability of that knife is probably the real terror. Tusen Kanami said in a deep voice, "The power of the Quincy can completely destroy the void. Could it be said that that sword can completely destroy the soul?" Ichimaru Jin said in surprise, Hey, this kind of power is probably close to the so-called God, right? Captain Aizen, if there is a fight, you will be responsible for dealing with Su Chen. We don't dare to fight him." Aizen Sosuke took a deep look at Su Chen, and then looked at the sky. Although the others had not arrived yet, Aizen Sosuke had already sensed the Reiatsu of those people. "Jin, Kanami, we should go. Now we have to leave. This is not the time to meet them face to face." Ichimaru Jin nodded, opened the world-traveling door with the Zanpakuto in his hand, and the three of them left one after another. Su Chen also gathered a scabbard for Zigen, and hung it on his waist together with Jinsao. As the blue light above his pupils faded little by little, the powerful Reiatsu reaction also disappeared little by little, and Su Chen slowly fell from the air to the ground. Looking at the fallen Jinghong Pearl, the other soul burial intern Shinigami around them had already fainted from the powerful Reiatsu just now. Although the distance is far away, Su Chen's Reiatsu is simply not something they can bear. At this moment, the portal behind Su Chen opened, and Hinamori Momo from the rescue team rushed over with a group of Shinigami. After seeing Su Chen, Hinamori Momo immediately ran over. "Su Chen, the report said that Manos Grande appeared here." I rushed over immediately. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine. It's just that Jinghong Pearl seems to be a little injured. There are other spiritual arts academy students around who were frightened and fainted. Just take them back to Soul Society," Su Chen said with an unchanged expression. The other Shinigami of Division 5 carefully looked around. "Hey, where's Yingsu? Why didn't you see anyone?" "Haha, maybe you knew our 5th team was coming, so you were so scared that you ran away, right? Forget it. If you can't find Manos Grande, save him first." Soon Hinamori Momo carried the pearl on his back, and everyone else also carried the students of the Spiritual Arts Academy onto the stretchers. "Su Chen, won't you come back to Soul Society with us?" Hinamori Momo walked at the back and asked after seeing that Su Chen didn't follow. "You go ahead, I'll play for a few days and then go back." "Okay then." Hinamori Momo pursed her lips and entered the world-transmitting gate with Jinghong Pearl. The double doors closed in response and slowly disappeared. With the return of Hinamori Momo and others, the world has become peaceful. However, after such calm, Urahara Kazuki, Shihuen Yoruichi, Kurosaki Isshin, Ishida Ryus, Ginjo Kugo and others arrived. A party with so many people. 289. Su Chen shook his head, and Shunpo disappeared in a flash, heading in a certain direction. At the same time, Urahara Kazuki and his party. Urahara Kazuki shook the folding fan in his hand and sighed. Oh my, that powerful Reiatsu seems to have been hidden. It seems that we are still late. Tessai Tsukubishi said solemnly. The master of Reiatsu has such a powerful power, but we don't even know his identity and purpose, which has to be worrying. 11. Right here. At this time, Shihuen Yoruichi suddenly felt a wave of Reiatsu passing quickly from above him. Its speed was so fast that ordinary Shunpo could not achieve it. Such speed, can it be said? She didn't have time to say anything and quickly chased after him. Urahara Kazuki and others Shunpo was not that fast, so they could only say from behind, Mr. Yoruichi, you should be careful alone. Shihuen Yoruichi leapt vigorously on the roof, with the wind howling on both sides. I was secretly shocked. You must know that she is known as the Flash Goddess in Soul Society, and can be said to be the first person in Soul Society Shunpo. Unexpectedly, even with his own speed, he could barely escape being thrown away by this person. The two of them leapt between the blue lights. It was the first time that Su Chen felt in the real world in a spirit state. How should I put it? There are some differences from the physical feeling. The spirit body is not so sensitive to temperature, even if it is snowing or hot, it will not have much impact. Later, I can think of a way to make a spiritual corpse so that I can move around in this world more easily. And Shihuen Yoruichi, who was following him, was naturally noticed by Su Chen. Soon, Su Chen led her to a dark alley with no one around. Only a little moonlight came through, illuminating the darkness here. Su Chen flashed into it, and Shihuen Yoruichi followed immediately. Through the faint moonlight, she could clearly see the figure of the man. It was a young boy wearing the blue and white uniform of the Spiritual Arts Academy, who looked very good looking. Shihuen Yoruichi couldn't help but his heart beat a little slower. He didn't expect such a beautiful Shinigami. The two looked at each other and were silent for a moment. A gust of wind blew by, gently stroking the hair on Shihuen Yoruichi's body, and then she said, Boy, your Shunpo level is not bad. Su Chen looked at Shihuen Yoruichi for a few times and said with a smile, Mr. Yoruichi, you are the #1 Shunpo in Soul Society. I still want to learn more from you. Shihuen's eyes narrowed at night. You know a lot of things. What happened when the spirit storm gathered there just now? I wonder if you saw it clearly. While looking at the young man in front of him, he thought, the spirit storm had dissipated before he and others arrived, and who or what caused the storm? Things, but I have never seen his true face in Lucian. Ah, are you talking about that person? Su Chen chuckled. When Ishida Ryu rushed to the scene, he saw a huge barrier slowly dissipating, but there was no aura of abnormal spiritual power inside. It seemed that I was late. Just then I saw the figure of Ishida Ryuxian. You actually call your father by his first name. It really hasn't changed at all. Why are you here? Don't you have the ability to be a Quincy? Ishida Ryu was a little surprised for a moment, and, am I not the last Quincy? Why would there be someone here who would attract outside spirits? Is there anyone else who is a Quincy besides me? Ishida Ryushan glanced at Ryu and put his hands in his pockets. You are too weak now and are not qualified to know. If you want to understand everything, use all your strength to become stronger. After saying that, he turned around and left. Hey, wait. Ishida Ryu said as he spoke, but Ryuzen's figure quickly disappeared at the end of the street. Then Ishida Ryu remembered some conversations with his father when he was a child. In the afternoon, when I was still a little kid, I returned home after learning the knowledge of Quincy from my grandfather. The setting sun outside the window was like blood, dyeing the evening clouds red. The man stood in front of the bookshelf, holding a book in his hand, without looking back at himself. Yulong, you went to your grandfather's place again. How many times have I told you to die? Going again. Quote. Don't make excuses. I've said it many times. Saving the dead is meaningless. That's Shinigami's job. You just need to learn how to save the living. I don't. You are interested, but you have no talent. The Quincy will end when you reach your grandfather's place, do you understand? Dad, why do you hate Quincy so much? Chapter 53, Infinite World. Ishida Ryushan then turned his head. The lens of his right eye reflected the sunlight, making Ishida Ryu unable to see clearly. I only heard my father say, because you can't make a fortune from it. After recalling it, Ishida Ryu had the impression that his father did not have Quincy abilities. Now it seems that there may be a secret that he is not aware of. At this moment, there was a sound of footsteps in the distance. Ishida Ryu turned around and saw that it was Kurosaki Ichigo from the class. Ignoring this ordinary human being, Ishida Ryu passed him by. Hey, wait a minute, have I seen you somewhere? Kurosaki Ichigo said. Ishida Ryu didn't respond and left without looking back. Kurosaki Ichigo touched his head. I always feel like I have seen him somewhere, but I can't remember it, forget it. It seems that the spirit storm has dissipated, and it seems to have no impact. Let's go home. Just when Kurosaki Ichigo was about to go home, he seemed to see a dark figure with a knife. The figure actually looked a bit like his father. Kurosaki Ichigo was shocked, and when he rushed to look, he found nothing. It must be my own misunderstanding. Dad should be sleeping at home now, or watching TV. However, he hurried back home. Unexpectedly, as soon as he pressed the door of his house, a smelly foot kicked him in the face. Ichigo, where have you been playing so late? Kurosaki Ichigo touched his nose, locked his father's feet, and pushed him to the ground. You are responsible. It seems like it's just my own illusion. Ooh, Ichigo has grown up. I don't need to care anymore. Kurosaki Ishin murmured. Kurosaki Shali and Kurosaki Yuzu looked at this scene and were used to it. Urahara Kazuki and Tessai Tsukubishi quickly arrived at the scene, and at the same time they met Hiroko Shinji and Surugaki Hiyori who were belatedly arriving. Urahara Kazuki waved after seeing the two of them. Hi. Hiroko. Surugaki. Surugaki Hiyori crossed his arms and turned his face away. Hiroko Shinji came closer and said while listening to Jazz. Ah, I didn't expect you to be here, Urahara. In your opinion, what could be the cause of this situation? Urahara Kazuki's expression under the brim of his hat became more solemn. This time the situation is indeed beyond my expectation and beyond all plans, but I think we should have another AMI with him. The other side. Ginjo Kugo and others also came here. Ginjo Kugo stretched out his hand to smooth his hair. It seems we are late. Could this kind of power belong to the Quincy? Aren't the Quincy's already exterminated? Poison Peak Liluka said 967 with some confusion. Tsukishima Hidekiro said. Logically speaking, the only Quincy left is Ishida Ryu. With his ability, he should not be able to do this. Ginjo Kugo narrowed his eyes. Anyway, it doesn't matter who he is, as long as he's not Shinigami. Then several people walked away towards the road. After they disappeared, soft footsteps appeared in the street. Wearing a black tight-fitting suit, with a slender waist and perfect and attractive hip line, Ora Dohanan is under the shadow. Looking at the retreating figures of the three people, I am afraid they will never understand the truth. After Su Chen finished speaking, Shihu and Yoruichi keenly noticed the key words. X. Are you saying it was one person who caused that fluctuation? In other words, you saw that person. Shihu and Yoruichi's heart moved. At the same time, she also noticed something special about Su Chen. That is, Su Chen actually has two Zanpakuto on his waist. Double sword. It's rare. But if you want to know the answer, you have to defeat me. Su Chen really wants to see Shihu and Yoruichi's ability, and the move of instant coax is quite interesting. Okay, since you want to see my power so much, just think of it as teaching the younger generations. Shihu and Yoruichi's voice was relaxed and freehand. A burst of white smoke emitted from Shihu and Yoruichi. Then a naked woman appeared in front of Su Chen. The woman looked like she was in her prime. The skin all over the body shows a rare brown color, which is extremely delicate and smooth. Although it is a rare color, it makes people feel a charm that has never been seen before. She has long purple hair hanging down to her soft and slender back. She has a lean figure, and now she is half kneeling on the ground, showing off her slender waist. When she stood up, she realized how slender and powerful her long legs were. Tisk, tisk, tisk. Su Chen looked up and down. This cat transformation technique is really amazing. It can freely switch between the spirit body and the physical body. Open black lens bracket. You watch Wamao technique and successfully understand it. Close black lens bracket. But you'd better put your clothes on. Su Chen took off his Spiritual Arts Academy uniform and threw it at Shihu and Yoruichi. Shihu and Yoruichi reached out and took Su Chen's clothes and put them on. The clothes are still warm and carry the smell of Su Chen. Well, I've been a cat for so long that I'm still a little used to these clothes. After putting on clothes, Shihu and Yoruichi, CGFJ, is more attractive than without clothes. The looming and powerful figure is hidden underneath. It gives people a half-covered feeling of rejection and shame. She slightly bent her knees and squatted down, like a female leopard ready to attack. Be careful. In an instant, his body shot out like an arrow from a string. The next moment, a fist came to Su Chen's side. Su Chen tilted his head slightly and dodged the blow. The strong wind blew Su Chen's hair, which was as clear as silk threads. The attack failed, just when Su Chen was about to draw his sword to fight back. Shihu and Yoruichi's figure suddenly disappeared from where he was. Only a blurry afterimage remains. And her body was moving at high speed around Su Chen. In an instant, it seemed like dozens of people attacked Su Chen at the same time. However, this is just an illusion caused by Shihu and Yoruichi's too fast speed. Hey, as expected of Flash Goddess Yoruichi. Su Chen sighed slightly in his heart. It's a pity that I can understand all your shunko at a glance. At this moment, azure blue light appeared in Su Chen's eyes. In this dark night, it stands out even more dazzlingly. Eye-catching, colorful, mysterious and mysterious. Then Su Chen's figure actually disappeared. Many of Shihuan Yoruichi's attacks missed the mark. Open black lens bracket. You watched Shihuan Yoruichi's Shunpo and successfully learned the enhanced version of Shunpo. Close black lens bracket. What? Shihuan Yoruichi was shocked. There are still people who can achieve such a level of Shunpo. Although he is known as Flash Goddess. But it's not something that can be accomplished overnight. It's the enhanced version of Shunpo that I only have after practicing and studying for many years. Can surpass the speed of everyone in Soul Society. Unexpectedly, this boy just watched himself use the enhanced Shunpo once and successfully learned it. What an amazing talent is this. I'm afraid this is no longer something that talent can explain. No matter how powerful the talent is, it cannot be learned at a glance. Is it copying or instant learning? Shihuan Yoruichi was secretly shocked. Maybe it's just a coincidence. I have not seen this young man's previous Shunpo level. Maybe he already had a Shunpo level comparable to his own during his time at the Spiritual Arts Academy. What a peerless genius. I don't know how to sigh in my heart. As soon as Na Kyonjin fired, Shihuan Yoruichi had already felt the cold wind of the sword hitting her back. What surprised Shihuan Yoruichi even more was the decisiveness and determination revealed in the sword wind. It is a knife without any hesitation. Is this guy really just an ordinary student from the Genkue Spiritual Arts Academy? Puff. Su Chen's knife penetrated Shihuan Yoruichi's body. Blood seemed to spurt out. It seems that Shihuan Yoruichi still has a look of disbelief and surprise on his face. I can't believe that I lost so easily. However, the next moment, Shihuan Yoruichi's figure suddenly appeared behind Su Chen. There was a faint smile on her lips. You didn't expect that, did you? This move, Empty Cicada, is her unique skill. During the rapid movement, the visual afterimage makes the enemy mistakenly believe that he has been stabbed, but in fact he only pierced the outer layer of clothing and escaped. The name, Empty Cicada, means the golden cicada escaping its shell. She is very confident, and if she uses it suddenly, she will be able to make the opponent unprepared. It's just a pity that the first gift that the beautiful boy just gave him, that is, the dress, was ruined so easily. It's a bit unbearable to think about it. At this moment, Shihuan Yoruichi, who had regained his shape without clothes, raised his slender and toned long legs, and hung them hard towards Su Chen's back. The sudden wind pressure even blew Su Chen's clothes and hair. Humph, let's see how you hide now. Shihuan Yoruichi is full of confidence. However, at this moment, she was suddenly startled. This kick doesn't feel right. It was like kicking extremely light cotton. How can it be so fast? Such a short time. How could he get away? How did he escape? Then his pupils couldn't help but shrink. He looked at the scene in front of him in shock. I saw a white shirt wrapped around his long legs, which was blown by the wind pressure with the kicking movements. Shihuan Yoruichi's graceful long legs easily kicked above his head. From extremely fast kicks to momentary stillness. At this time, she stood on one foot and kicked one foot to the top of her head. However, his posture was as stable as a mountain, without wavering at all. The strength of its muscles can be seen as a Madara. Shihuan Yoruichi gently pulled his right hand, as if taking off clothes from a hanger, and took out the dusty white shirt. He lowered his left leg slowly and looked at the clothes in his hand in surprise. As this, Kong Chan, how can it be? If we talk about Su Chen's Shunpo before, it can be said that Su Chen has already cultivated Shunpo to the same level as himself during his time at the Spiritual Arts Academy. But Kong Chan is clearly his own unique skill. Soul Society has no one except itself. Su Chen could only have learned it after seeing the empty cicada just once. Diant. Are these abilities really still human? Shihuan Yoruichi was deeply shocked. If you just looked at Su Chen as a student, now you look at Su Chen as a student like Urahara. Kazuki comes to the general public. This ability alone is enough to make Su Chen invincible. At this moment, she saw a knife in Su Chen's hand. A deep, dark knife. It was as if he was trying to suck his soul into it. Black knife. It seems that black knives are rarely seen in Soul Society. What are the abilities of this knife? Shihuan Yoruichi shook his head and quickly sobered up. As what you used just now, an empty cicada. At this moment, Su Chen had no clothes on her body. As a result, his strong muscles were exposed. He nodded slightly and commented. Kong Chan's skill is pretty good, but it's a pity that he needs to wear more clothes when using it. Although it's not too cold, it will hinder the weathering after all. Puff. Shihuan Yoruichi almost spit out blood. I'm asking if you are using Kongshin. Are you talking to me about weathering? Are you not nervous at all? Is there no pressure to fight with me? Am I too weak? Are you not interested? In that case, let me show you my true strength. But before that, we may have to change places, otherwise this city. This is simple. Su Chen snapped his fingers and made a crisp sound. Immediately, he said, Field, Infinite World. In an instant, as Su Chen snapped his fingers, a mysterious wave spread out. I saw a purple-black color spreading from Su Chen's back, like ink spreading in clear water, dyeing the whole world bit by bit. The surrounding street lights, the moon in the sky, and the tall buildings in the distance. Everything is soaked in it. As the colors converge behind him, the world is back to its original state. Although it looks similar to Karakura town, there are slight differences. It seems that the air here is fresher and the wind is more comfortable. Where is this? Shihu and Yoruichi stared blankly at everything around him. Chen touched his chin, as if thinking about how to explain. Just think that I have pulled us into my inner world. No matter how much power you exert here, you will not have any influence on the world. Any impact. Quote. After watching the enchantment technique before, Chen has been thinking about what it should be. Then at this moment, he integrated the barrier technique with his own inner world, creating an ability similar to the expansion of the field. You can pull yourself and your opponent into your inner world, where as long as your Reiatsu is not exhausted, you will be in a state of immortality. The reason why Shihu and Yoruichi feels familiar yet strange. Because this is Chen's inner blue star world. It's still very similar to Karakura town. It's just that there are some differences in subtleties. Although he could not understand the situation in front of him at all, Shihu and Yoruichi listened to 10 words. She stretched her fists and legs and chuckled. You mean, no matter how much damage I do here, there will be no problem, right? Come on, let me see the so-called instant coax. Chen moved his hands and thought, and the surrounding spirits condensed, turning into a set of white clothes and putting them on his body, putting his hands in his pockets. Smiled lightly. Seeing this scene, Shihu and Yoruichi narrowed his eyes. This ability to turn clothes into clothes from outside spirits seems to belong to the Quincy, right? But this guy surprised me too much. Whether it's pulling yourself into your inner world, or using your spirit to condense your clothes. What is certain is that this person is definitely not someone who can be judged by common sense. Shihu and Yoruichi let out a long breath. There seemed to be a powerful force of Reiatsu in that breath, which actually blew apart the bricks and stones on the ground, as if it had been hit by some kind of hammer. Shihu and Yoruichi squatted down slightly and put his hands together. Instant coax, open. Then he stood up and opened his hands. In an instant, a terrifying wave emanated from Shihu and Yoruichi. The Reiatsu on Shihu and Yoruichi seems to be exponentially more powerful. Click. Dazzling thunder exploded from behind her. Under the powerful Reiatsu, the building behind him shattered inch by inch, and boulders rolled down. A lot of smoke and dust dispersed. Shihu and Yoruichi walked out of the smoke and said with a smile. Young man, you have to be careful. When I use this trick, I still can't control it freely. Oh, chapter 54. Don't touch other people's tails casually. You don't even pull out Zanpakuto. Are you going to deal with my Shunkaku with nothing? Shihu and Yoruichi had a faint smile on his face. Don't be too trusting. Then Shihu and Yoruichi waved his hand, and an unimaginable Reiatsu wind crushed everything in front of him. Click, 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 click. That Reiatsu has completely turned into reality. It doesn't look like a gust of wind, but like a huge knife. The land in front of him was plowed, and a large amount of smoke and dust erupted. After the smoke and dust dissipated, I saw that the ground hundreds of meters away in front of me had been dug away by several feet. Only the place where Chen stood was safe and sound. So the place where Chen was standing changed from flat ground to high ground. Shihu and Yoruichi stood on the high ground looking at each other through a lot of smoke, just staring at each other quietly. Shihu and Yoruichi is in no rush to attack. Because like she said, she can't control the power of this move freely. It would be bad if he hurt this beloved young man. She began to introduce, the so-called Shunkaku is a combat technique that combines Todo and white hits. When this move is completed, highly compressed Kido will gather on the user's back and shoulders, and by exploding them, Kido will be injected into his hands and feet to fight. And my instant coax is of thunder attribute. It's extremely powerful. Once a blow is fired, I can't stop it even if I want to. In Shihu and Yoruichi, he stands tall and straight, his straight and slender legs are round and strong, and he is full of explosive power at first glance. The willow waist is slender, tough, and extremely flexible, like an agile and dangerous female leopard. At this time, behind her, a large amount of Reiatsu turned into substantial thunder, crackling continuously, like a cloak coming from the king. No, or at this moment Shihu and Yoruichi has turned into a thunder. It has thunderous speed and thunderous destructive power at every turn. It can be said that the destructive power of Kido, the fists and kicks of white hits, and the speed of Shunpo. All of this is a perfect blend of moves. Open black lens bracket. You watch Shihu and Yoruichi perform Shunju and successfully understand Shunku. Close black lens bracket. Chen didn't even make a defensive gesture, just hooked his hand at Shihu and Yoruichi, although I have learned Shunju just by looking at it. Shunju versus Shunju is too boring. I want to experience it. The physical body's feeling of instant coziness. Attack me with all your strength and let me see where your limits are. The corners of Shihu and Yoruichi's mouth twitched. Flesh versus instant coax. Real or fake? Are you sure you're not kidding? Even if Urahara Kazuki drank fake wine, he wouldn't be able to say such a thing. Shihu and Yoruichi was afraid that one of his moves would damage the boy in front of him. Forget it, if it breaks, you'll be responsible for it. It seems that I am not at a loss if I follow him. The next moment, Shihuan Yoruichi turned into a bolt of thunder and rushed in front of Su Chen. On her fist, Hadō turned into the power of thunder, crackling, and even the air smelled of burning. This punch seemed to burn the air. However, facing this punch, he just raised his hand. Move 2 fingers forward slightly. It seems to be extremely light and gentle, as if not a single ounce of strength is being used. It's like the caress between lovers, as if they are afraid that the force used is too strong and will hurt their lover. However, such a light and fluttering finger is as stable as a mountain and as thick as the sea. He easily blocked Shihuan Yoruichi's punch. The exploding thunder was dispersed by this finger before it could reach Su Chen. A large amount of thunder surged toward Su Chen like a flood. However, in front of this finger, the flood seemed to have encountered some indestructible dam. It's like putting a finger under the faucet. No matter how fierce the water flow is, it can't break through in front of this finger. A large amount of thunderous Reiatsu could only escape around Su Chen. What? Shihuan Yoruichi's eyes widened in confusion. There was a little cold sweat on the forehead, face, and ears. A punch that was supposed to be indestructible and indestructible could be blocked so easily. In the past, once I used the instant coax state, the battles were always one-sided battles with no disadvantage. But now it was blocked by someone with just one finger. How big is the gap between you and him? I thought that as one of the captains, as one of the 4 nobles, and as someone who had developed the ability to instantly coax, I should have reached a certain peak. Didn't you expect that you can't even break through the opponent's defense? This scene was like a huge blow to Shihuan Yoruichi's self-esteem. She couldn't imagine that the gap between herself and this boy would be so big. What kind of genius is this boy? What kind of monster? What kind of monster? Or is he simply the incarnation of some ancient Manos Grande? Shihuan Yoruichi couldn't help but feel horrified. Su Chen smiled softly, showing a white fang. It seems that your instant coaxing power is not very strong. After Shihuan Yoruichi clenched his teeth, he couldn't help but grind his teeth up and down, moving left and right. It really felt like he was going up to bite him. This person's words really make people feel very uncomfortable. I take it back, this boy is really annoying. Then Shihuan Yoruichi, as a thunderbolt, attacked Su Chen from various angles, back, left, up and down. Even under her ultimate Shunpo, her body almost turned into multiple figures and attacked Su Chen at the same time. This time, you should be able to hurt this boy, right? Shihuan Yoruichi thought so in his heart. Even if your hand can block one of my moves. At this moment, under my speed, I am attacking dozens of attacks at the same time. Do you have a dozen hands to block it? However, what shocked Shihuan Yoruichi was that even she had expanded the frequency of her attacks to such an extent. On her fist, Reiatsu turned into substantial thunder with explosive power, but it was still unable to break through Su Chen's defense. Even if it hit Su Chen's body, she was still beaten by the kind of thunder that far surpassed her own. Blocked by Reiatsu. This is no longer a gap that can be bridged by skills, it is an absolute Reiatsu gap. The two's Reiatsu isn't even in the same realm. After understanding this, Shihuan Yoruichi stopped his attack. Heartbroken. After all, he was also one of the former captains, the commander of the secret mobile team. Now 100 years have passed, and even a young man has been moved. It's useless. It's useless. After using up the last bit of Reiatsu, Shihuan Yoruichi's Shunhu state also dissipated. Lying on the ground without any image. Her plump breasts and graceful figure were on full display. If you don't fight, you won't be able to fight. Under the slender waist, the legs full of explosive power kicked, looking up at the sky of this world. I can't help but doubt life. Are you crazy or is the world crazy? Why can't he beat a boy he's never seen before? What's wrong with you? Su Chen thought and slowly floated to Shihuan Yoruichi's side. I have to say that Shihuan Yoruichi's figure is still very good. He is the type that looks slim when dressed and looks fat when undressed. Especially a pair of strong and slender jade legs is even more eye-catching. Shihuan Yoruichi rolled his eyes at Su Chen. What do you think? I couldn't help but stretched out my kick and kicked Su Chen lightly, but was easily caught in Su Chen's hand. After struggling twice, he couldn't break free. Shihuan Yoruichi is too lazy to struggle, let him do as he likes. Tired. Destroy it. The kitten's feet feel quite good when held in the hand. Perhaps due to regular exercise, the skin is smoother and more delicate than expected, with a sense of firmness and no looseness at all. In terms of shape, the arch of the foot is deep, and you can feel the strong jumping and explosive power just by touching it. Following the jade feet, one can see the strong calf muscles. They feel hard to the touch, not soft like those who lack exercise. Next is the slender waist, with a navel like a standing gemstone on the slender waist. Presenting an almost perfect hourglass figure. The battle just now seemed easy, but Shihuan Yoruichi even used his own tricks to press the box, and attacked with so many moves with all his strength. Naturally, he was very tired and covered in sweat. His chest heaved and he breathed rapidly, wiping the sweat from his forehead. After swallowing a sip of saliva, he looked up at Su Chen and said, I didn't expect that I couldn't even break through your defense under my full attack. Are you really still a human? It was obvious that even he was so tired after a battle, but not a drop of sweat could be seen on Su Chen's forehead. Is this guy an Iron Man? He won't be tired at all. Su Chen reached out to massage Shihuan Yoruichi's soles. Press hard on the knuckles of your right fingers. Ah, Shihuan Yoruichi screamed, seemingly in pain, and subconsciously wanted to free his feet from Su Chen's hands. Don't move, I'll press it for you. It should be able to recover quickly. Shihuan Yoruichi's face turned a little red, and he turned his head away and did not dare to look at Su Chen's face. I don't know whether it was because he was tired, or because his jade feet, which had never been played with by anyone before, fell into Su Chen's hands and he needed them wantonly. It felt a little painful at first, causing her to gasp from time to time. Later, I gradually felt better. Shihuan Yoruichi just lay down obediently, narrowing his eyes and enjoying the young man's service. Please give me flowers. I have to say, it's quite comfortable. It seems that this young man is even good at massaging. If she were still the princess of the Shihuan family, one of the four nobles of Soul Society, with this little skill, she would have taken this young man as her personal guard and let him follow her every day. Su Chen put down one leg and picked up the other. At this time, Shihuan Yoruichi asked with a red face, speaking of which, I haven't asked your name yet. My name is Su Chen. Quote. Shihuan Yoruichi silently repeated this name dozens of times in his mind, etching it in his heart. While he was still enjoying it, he didn't expect that Su Chen had put down his feet and said, it should be fine now. You can stand up and try. Shihuan Yoruichi opened his eyes in confusion. It felt as comfortable as if I had slept for several days, and all the fatigue on my body was gone. All the bones in his body seemed to have fallen apart. I don't even want to get up. Seeing that Shihuan Yoruichi didn't get up, Su Chen stretched out his hand to pull her up. Shihuan Yoruichi's originally hard body was as soft as a doll, and he was suddenly pulled up and fell into Su Chen's arms. Holding Shihuan Yoruichi. The feeling is completely different from Rukia Kuchiki. You can clearly feel the pressure on your chest and it is very elastic. Shihuan Yoruichi reached out and put his hands on Su Chen's chest and pushed it gently. Unexpectedly, the boy's muscles were quite strong. It seemed that he had been exercising a lot. Defeated, I didn't have the face to ask Su Chen the previous questions. Regardless of whether it is Su Chen or not, in short, the soldiers will block it, and the water will cover it. As long as you are strong, you can stop the mysterious man even if he wants to do something bad. Since I lost to you, I can promise you a condition. Oh, are any conditions acceptable? Su Chen said with a smile, looking up and down at Shihuan Yoruichi's figure. Shihuan Yoruichi's face turned red. Could it be that the other party wanted to? I'm still a virgin, I haven't tried that kind of thing yet, I don't know what it feels like. Although he was a little curious, Shihuan Yoruichi, who had lived for hundreds of years, was still a novice in this regard, and blushed a little shyly. Whatever you want. As a result, the next moment it turned into a black cat and was at Su Chen's feet. If you don't even let the cat go, I will obey you. Su Chen is interested in Shihuan Yoruichi, but is not in a hurry. The feeling of having sex with a cat is quite fresh. Kneeling down, he stretched out his arms and picked up Shihuan Yoruichi. From Shihuan Yoruichi's perspective, he is flying by himself. The cat in his arms was warm and soft, and it felt completely different from Shihuan Yoruichi, whose whole body was covered in muscles. He reached out and stroked the cat's tail. Shihuan Yoruichi buried his head in Su Chen's arms. Really, don't touch other people's tails casually. The ink color of the infinite world fades little by little. The two return to the real world. Standing under the streetlight, Su Chen looked at the flowers and plants behind the guardrail in front of her, as well as the various buildings on both sides of the road. There is also the asphalt road underfoot. Everything has a kind and familiar feeling. It's still more comfortable to live in this world. Where are you going next? Shihuan Yoruichi asked in Su Chen's arms. At this time, Shihuan Yoruichi used his own voice, which sounded crisp and had a little trembling in it. I don't know if it's because its tail is in Su Chen's hand. If you have nowhere to go, you can go to the Urahara store first. Su Chen nodded. Okay. It just so happens that he also wants to see the Hogyoku made by Urahara Kazuki. At this moment in the Urahara store, since no one could be found, Urahara Kazuki and Tessai Tsukubishi also returned to the shop. Several people gathered around the fire. At this moment, Urahara Kazuki sensed a familiar scent approaching. So he stood up with a smile on his face. Mr. Yoruichi, you are back. Just when I was about to open the door. Pressing one hand on the doorknob, the panda eyes hidden under the shadow of the hat brim suddenly widened, and a trace of cold sweat could not help but appear on his forehead. The hand that was about to open the door paused for an instant, as if what he was opening was not an ordinary door, but a door to hell. Tessai Tsukubishi asked curiously, what's wrong? Urahara Kazuki shook his head and collected himself. Nothing, I just felt a very powerful Reiatsu. Tessai Tsukubishi was even more surprised. What a powerful person it is to be able to make even Urahara Kazuki call him a very powerful Reiatsu, and also be able to make him shed cold sweat. After opening the door,
I saw a young man holding a large person in his arms, greeting several people with a slight smile, and revealed a mouthful of white fang. Hello, my name is Su Chen. L. Chapter 55 The complete location of Hogyoku. After opening the door, Urahara Kazuki looked straight at the man standing at his door. The man was wearing a spacious white suit, swaying gently in the wind. He stood in the wind but was as unwavering as a rock. With a faint smile on his face, it seemed that everything was under his control, and nothing beyond his expectations would ever happen. And hanging on his waist, double swords. Tessai Tsukubishi touched his head, a little confused about the situation. This was the first time he had seen the store manager acting so rude. So he could only say, "You two, please come in." Su Chen gently patted Urahara Kazuki on the shoulder and passed him by. Urahara, put down all the methods you think of, because no matter how many methods you use, they are useless in the face of absolute strength. Under that shot, what Su Chen took was not Urahara Kazuki's soul, but Urahara Kazuki's ghost body. And in Su Chen's eyes, blue light shone past. At that moment, Su Chen had already seen through all the technology of making the body, and the technology of making the body that could shield Reiatsu. You took a photo of the prosthetic skeleton made by Urahara Kazuki and successfully understood the prosthetic skeleton technique. Close black lens bracket. As for the conversion technology between Link C and Kizi, Su Chen, who has Link C control, has reached a peak in his understanding of Link C. Converting it into a vessel is not difficult either. You have successfully understood the method of converting spirits and weapons. Close black lens bracket. Su Chen has a condensed spirit on his body, and after a flash of blue particle light, his prosthetic skeleton has been completed. I moved my fists and feet a bit, but the feeling was still a little different from that of the spirit body. Generally speaking, the spirit body will feel lighter, as if it can jump very high with a light jump. The body is more real, more stable, and is firmly attracted by gravity. But that difference is equivalent to no difference under Su Chen's strength. Because 420 means Su Chen's Reiatsu is too high, but when Su Chen's spirit sun density is so high, there is no feeling that the spirit body is lighter. The reason why I was able to hold Shihun Yoruichi before was just because Su Chen turned Reiatsu into a thin film and covered it on the surface of the body, so that he could touch things in the world. Urahara Kazuki was also deeply shocked after seeing Su Chen's method of turning souls into weapons without any external objects. As a technology developer, he knows how difficult it is to do this without relying on anything. Perhaps only Hogyoku, which I developed myself, can turn the inner thoughts of those around me into reality, can do this, right? Who is this man and what is his purpose? Su Chen hugged Shihun Yoruichi and sat on the mat. He reached out and picked up the teapot from the table, and poured himself a cup of tea. His movements were leisurely and he didn't pay attention to the people in front of him at all. A child with red hair that looked like a dynamite couldn't help but said after seeing Su Chen, "Who are you?" Su Chen turned to look at him. However, this ordinary glance was like being struck by lightning in Hanakari Jinda's eyes, and her eyes suddenly widened in confusion. A terrifying Reiatsu pressed down from the top of his head. Under the astonishing pressure, his knees twisted and made an unbearable clicking sound, and finally he knelt down with a plop. The powerful Reiatsu in his body slowly dissipated. Hanakari Jinda's eyes were filled with only fear. At this moment, he already understood that the boy in front of him was on the same level as the store manager, and he was not someone he could mess with. Your Excellency, Reiatsu, is this really surprising? Urahara Kazuki sat opposite Su Chen, his eyes hidden under the green and white brim of his hat were more solemn than ever. Su Chen smiled faintly and glanced at Xiaoyu who was cleaning with a broom in both hands. He tied his twin ponytails with a pink hair rope and had foundation on his cheeks. He lowered his head and looked soft and weak. Wu Yu. These two people are the candidates for the Soul King you made. As long as Hogyoku and a large number of souls are stuffed in at a critical moment, it can become a temporary replacement for the Soul King. Looks like he has good qualifications. Su Chen made a surprising statement. Hanakari Jinda and Wu Wuyu looked at Su Chen in disbelief. Their heads were buzzing. They were candidates for the Soul King. Tessai Tsukubishi immediately realized that this was not the place where these two children should be, so he led them out. When Wu Yu went out, he took a deep look at Su Chen. Suddenly, only Su Chen, Urahara Kazuki and Shihun Yoruichi were left in the room. Urahara Kazuki was silent for a long time, but he didn't expect Su to see through him at a glance the true purpose of his wife Hanakari and Urahara. Su Chen, who are you? Urahara Kazuki squinted his eyes, making his expression unclear. People like Su Chen are like gold in the sand, which is absolutely impossible to hide. Since I have not heard any news about him before, it is obvious that Su Chen will not appear for too long. In other words, Su Chen should be a member of the new generation. Or maybe the old monster from 10,000 years has been hiding, only to show up now, and is still interested in pretending to be a teenager. Su Chen smiled, I'm just a little Shinigami. Urahara Kazuki would not take Su Chen's words seriously. The spiritual storm in Karakura town just now was probably caused by you. As soon as Urahara Kazuki said this, Tessai, who was hiding outside and eavesdropping, could feel the air in the room becoming tense. Su Chen's expression did not change at all. He put Shihu and Yoruichi on his lap and picked up the teacup. The heat slowly rose from the water, condensed together and turned into a thick white smoke that rose into the sky, and then gradually became thinner. Urahara Kazuki is not sure whether Su Chen did all this. It's just that such an unusual event just happened, and I met such an unimaginable Shinigami as Su Chen, it's hard not to think of the two things together. So I tried to deceive Su Chen, but I didn't expect that Su Chen's mentality was so calm, there was no fluctuation at all, and there was no unnecessary situation at all. Urahara Kazuki realized that Su Chen was a thoughtful, moody character. Actually, it doesn't hurt to tell you. What happened today was indeed my fault. Oh, Urahara Kazuki was a little surprised. He didn't expect that Su Chen didn't hide himself. Shihu and Yoruichi, who was on Su Chen's lap, was also a little shocked. Although he had already guessed that Su Chen was probably the one who caused the spirit storm, he still couldn't help but be surprised after it was confirmed. What is the purpose of generating such huge energy? And as Su Chen is a Shinigami, how come Jin has the ability to be a Quincy? Doesn't the power of a Quincy require the blood of Yhwach? Urahara Kazuki's eyes looked at the two knives on Su Chen's waist. Do you mean to condense the knives? If it is some kind of Kido or magic, it has condensed such a huge amount of energy, and it is impossible not to release it. It should be a huge firework rising from Karakura town, and even Karakura town may be destroyed by it. There is no spiritual power bursting out now, it can only be that something is built with that power. He is indeed the smartest person in Soul Society. Su Chen looked at Urahara Kazuki with admiration. I didn't expect that the other party could guess so much just by clicking. Urahara Kazuki couldn't help but shrink his pupils. Is such a huge amount of energy just for making a knife? How terrifying is the ability of this knife? Actually, I came here today to tell you something. Then take out the Hogyoku inside Rukia Kuchiki. After hearing Su Chen's words, Urahara Kazuki's pupils shrank. Only he and Jashiro should know that Hogyoku is hidden in Rukia Kuchiki's body. How did this young man find out? Oh, are you here for Hogyoku too? Urahara Kazuki said solemnly. You can say yes, you can say no. Aizen Sosuke may indeed be looking for Hogyoku, but for me, Hogyoku's ability is dispensable. If you and Aizen Sosuke can make Hogyoku, so can I. What I don't understand is that you regard Rukia Kuchiki as a container to hide Hogyoku. Su Chen took a sip of hot tea and said calmly. I'm really sorry for Rukia Kuchiki, but as long as I can hide Hogyoku, it's worth making this sacrifice. But since Your Excellency Su Chen proposed it, then everything can be arranged as you want. Urahara Kazuki thought for a moment and then said. Su Chen was a little surprised. She didn't expect Urahara Kazuki to agree so quickly. Urahara Kazuki smiled bitterly and explained. Sir Su Chen, if you can carry Mr. Yoruichi back, you must have had a battle with Mr. Yoruichi just now. Not even Mr. Yoruichi is a match for Mr. Su Chen, and with the sword in your hand that can almost destroy Karakura town, do I have any other choice besides obeying? Just like the first sentence Your Excellency said to me after entering the door, I do have many means, but in the face of absolute strength, no matter how many means are useless, I always remind myself of this. So, as long as your purpose is not to destroy the three realms, I will not stop you. Therefore, at this moment, I must seriously ask you, what is your purpose? Please be sure to answer me seriously. Urahara Kazuki took off the hat on his head, and his expression became more solemn than ever. The sitting posture also changed from the original laziness to a state of being ready to draw a sword at any time. His right hand was already on the handle of the knife, and there was a deep fear in his eyes. Just one Aizen Sosuke is already a headache. If you add Su Chen and Urahara Kazuki, there is really no confidence that they can win these two people. Outside the room, Tessai Tsukubishi has already formed a seal with his hands. With just one command, he can deploy the Bakudo barrier to ensure that the battle here will not affect Karakura town. Everything is like a string tightened on an arrow, just waiting for an answer from Su Chen. However, under such a tense situation, Su Chen still slowly brewed tea. It seems that Urahara Kazuki and Tessai Tsukubishi are completely ignored. Even if the two attacked, he was not afraid at all. Lift the teapot with your hand, pour the clear hot water into the cup, and the aroma of tea rises. He took a gentle breath and said calmly, if I said that my purpose is to travel across the world, would you believe it? Across the world, Urahara Kazuki was stunned for a moment. Even with his knowledge, he couldn't understand what Su Chen said for a while. You definitely don't mean traveling through this world, Soul Society, Hueco Mundo, Hell, these kinds of worlds, right? Urahara Kazuki said. Smart, maybe you can't understand that it is a place outside Soul Society, this world, Hueco Mundo, the world, and Hell, in a very distant place that you have never been to. Urahara Kazuki was stunned for a moment. I thought about a lot at this moment. Then he smiled and said. If you are not lying, then maybe your understanding and knowledge are indeed beyond the limits of what I can understand. I just assume that you want to go somewhere far, far away. Su Chen smiled. But before traveling across the world, there may be some small goals, such as trying the taste of cats. He picked up Shihuan Yoruichi's armpits and stroked her. Meow. Shihuan Yoruichi got angry and stomped on Su Chen's legs with his cat feet. You really don't even let the cat go. Su Chen couldn't help but smile when she saw this scene. The cat's feet were quite comfortable to step on. Then he stretched out a finger to tease the cat. Shihuan Yoruichi couldn't help grinding his teeth. Do you really think of me as a cat? Bite you. He whimpered and took Su Chen's finger into his mouth. Although he wanted to bite, it was obvious that his attack could not even break through Su Chen's defense. On the contrary, his teeth were broken and painful. I could only lie down on Su Chen's lap and rest. Seeing this scene, Urahara Kazuki put on his hat, broke it open, fanned it gently, and showed a smile. Well, Mr. Yoruichi, just be satisfied. This young man is so handsome. What girl wouldn't be moved by him after seeing him? It's a pity that I'm not a girl, otherwise I would have sacrificed myself. Just think of it as you saving the world. We will always remember your kindness. Urahara, you want to die. Shihuan Yoruichi said, and slashed Urahara Kazuki's face with his cat's claw. Urahara Kazuki covered his face with blood, still looking like a dead pig not afraid of boiling water. Mr. Su Chen, why don't you just stay for a few days? Rukia Kuchiki will probably come to this world in the near future. You can take out the Hogyoku then. Su Chen nodded. After the conversation ended, Tessai Tsukubishi also breathed a sigh of relief and scattered the Bakudo seal in his hand. Then Hanakari Jinda and Rain Shinobi couldn't help but rush in and ask Urahara Kazuki what Su Chen meant by the Soul King candidate before. As for how Urahara Kazuki deceived the two of them, Su Chen didn't care. Do you have a kitchen here? Shihuan Yoruichi was a little confused. Of course it's available on 3.6, I'll take you there. After saying that, he jumped off Su Chen's shoulder and led him towards the kitchen. After Shinigami possesses the righteous skeleton, he can also replenish the energy of the living device by eating, and then convert it into the spiritual energy he needs. When it comes to food, Shihuan Yoruichi becomes interested. Although she is so thin, she exercises a lot every day and can eat dozens of bowls of rice. If you go to a buffet or something, you can bankrupt the restaurant. After coming to the kitchen, Su Chen saw that the tableware was complete. Let's have some noodles for a midnight snack before going to bed. Su Chen thought about starting the pot and lighting up the fire. He first cut an egg, then cut the tomatoes into cubes and the green onions into sections. Even Shihuan Yoruichi couldn't see his knife skills when cutting tomatoes. I couldn't help but feel a chill in my heart. If Su Chen's cutting skills were used to chop people, he would never be able to dodge it. Then add a little oil and fry the tomatoes. Stir fry until the juice is released, then add the chopped eggs, sprinkle with a little chopped green onion and take out. Then clean the pot, pour in cold water, add the noodles after the water boils, take them out and run them through cold water after they are cooked. Add the soulful, sticky tomatoes and eggs, and a simple bowl of noodles is ready. After the noodles were ready, when Su Chen was about to pick up the chopsticks, he saw that the black cat transformed by Shihuan Yoruichi was drooling on the ground. Shihuan Yoruichi is so greedy. Why does the food made by Su Chen smell so good? Su Chen smiled and handed the noodles to Shihuan Yoruichi. Come, have a taste. Although Shihuan Yoruichi really wanted to say that he didn't want it. But she really couldn't help it. After one bite, I couldn't stop. After eating, her expression suddenly became serious, as if she was about to say something important. Su Chen, I have decided. Chapter 56 We are afraid because we are invisible. I have decided that you will be my owner. Shihuan Yoruichi stretched out a cat's paw, pressed it on the back of Su Chen's hand, and said with firm eyes. The owner. Just give me a meal, and then I'll do whatever you want. Shihuan Yi. A pair of dark eyes looked at Su Chen firmly, and there seemed to be some very necessary reason in his eyes. As for why, it can only be said that the food cooked by Su Chen is so delicious. Compared with the food cooked by Su Chen, what did you eat before? It can be said that after eating the food cooked by Su Chen, I will not be able to eat the food cooked by others in the future. I have a good impression of Su Chen. Being his cat doesn't seem to be a disadvantage, and I can still eat delicious food every day. Okay. Su Chen picked up Shihuan Yoruichi and put him in his arms. Who wouldn't be happy with a cute black cat? The most important thing is that you can still F*K when you become a human, but you can't mast *RB when you become a cat. Then Su Chen chatted with Urahara Kazuki and learned about the method of removing matter from the soul. At this moment, Su Chen suddenly felt a virtual Reiatsu. Let's go and have a look. Soul Society. After the return of Aizen Sosuke, Ichimaru Jin and Tusen Konami. Ichimaru Jin was still immersed in surprise about Su Chen. Oh my, if Su Chen is here, will it be a big disadvantage to our plan? Aizen Sosuke smiled and said, you don't have to worry about this. Rather, I want to try Su Chen's limit. Being able to meet a master like Su Chen who surpasses everyone, Aizen Sosuke's heart is not afraid, but happy. He has been alone in his position above everyone for too long, and no one can compare with him. He is looking forward to playing against Su Chen. But before that, he still needs to get the complete Hogyoku and raise his strength to its peak in order to enjoy this battle. At this time Tusen Kanami said, Lord Aizen, it seems that some nobles have committed crimes recently. I have arrested them all and are waiting for trial. Do I want to kill them all? In the past, even if a noble was caught, he would not necessarily be executed because of Central 46's protection of the nobles. But now that Central 46 has all been killed by them and is under their control, they can naturally issue the orders they want. Aizen Sosuke smiled and said, Tusen, you are too extreme. I have said it many times. Even if you kill these nobles, you will not be able to solve the decadent status quo of Soul Society. The only thing that can change Soul Society is real change. Ah. And the day of real change is not far away. Wait a minute, and when I get Urahara Kazuki's piece of Hogyoku, we can leave Soul Society and head to Hueco Mundo. And I have already investigated the whereabouts of the Hogyoku in the Great Spirit Book Corridor, and I have also mastered the calendar for extracting the Hogyoku from the soul. On Rukia Kuchiki's body, Tusen Kanami was a little surprised when he heard the name, Rukia Kuchiki. That member of the 13th Division. The lady of the Kuchiki family, one of the 4 nobles. Ichimaru Jin also touched his head in surprise. Aizen Sosuke nodded and chuckled. That's right, let's go to the 13th Division and have a look now. It would be best if we could capture her. The 3 of them arrived at the location of Division 13. Because Jashiro has been ill all year round, the 13th Division is in a beautiful place on the outskirts. The wild grass here grows very luxuriantly, almost reaching calf height. Surrounded by vegetation, there is also a river. Because the captain Jashiro Yukitaki was sick, a separate room was set up for the captain to rest. It was a pavilion on the river. It's called Yugantang. Bamboo, grass, flowering trees are planted on the river embankment, just like a garden, and the front door is covered with bamboo curtains. Jashiro lives here all year round. Aizen Sosuke came here easily, and the members of the 13th Division quickly discovered them. Captain Aizen, you are here to see Captain Jashiro, I will take you there right now. Aizen Sosuke said gently, thank you very much. Soon they arrived at the door of Yugantang, and the team member left after reporting. Jashiro Yukitaki was also surprised to hear the news of Aizen Sosuke's arrival. However, he quickly calmed down and said, please come in. Quote. Aizen Sosuke opened the bamboo curtain and entered the Yugan hall. Jashiro Yukitaki, who had white hair, was lying on the bed, covered with a quilt, his face extremely pale. When Ichimaru Jin saw this scene, he couldn't help but said, hey, it seems that you are seriously ill, Jashiro, so you should take good care of yourself. Rumble. At this time it seemed like it was going to rain outside, and there was a thunder in the dark night. The wind gradually became stronger. Jashiro Yukitaki raised his fist in front of his mouth and coughed twice. Thank you very much, Captain Ichimaru Jin, for your concern. Unfortunately, I am in poor health and cannot greet the captains in person. I'm really sorry. Aizen Sosuke closed the curtains of the room, and the lenses in front of his eyes reflected the lightning outside. Jashiro, you are just too aloof. Jashiro Yukitaki smiled, maybe so. Aizen Sosuke said, let me get straight to the point, where is Rukia Kuchiki? Jashiro Yukitaki thought for a moment and said, you are looking for Rukia. That is really unfortunate. She seemed to have heard something about an unexpected situation in the soul burial internship just now. She seemed a little worried about someone's situation and rushed to the present world. That's really unfortunate. Aizen Sosuke pushed up his glasses, but there was no surprise on his face. In that case, let's not disturb Captain Jashiro too much. Aizen Sosuke stood up, Tusen Kanami and Ichimaru Jin following behind him. After the incident was over, Ichimaru Jin touched his head and said, Captain Aizen, if nothing happens, I will return to the 3rd Division. I am afraid that it will be easily noticed by others if I leave my position for too long. After watching Ichimaru Jin go away, Tusen Kanami couldn't help but ask, since Aizen-sama knows that this person has evil intentions, why don't you get rid of this guy? Aizen Sosuke smiled, his tone revealing strong confidence. It's okay, I'm quite curious, how is he going to kill me? Inoue Orihime's home. Quote. Inoue Orihime's red lips were slightly open, the tip of a pink tongue was moistened with crystal water, and she exhaled hot breath. She seemed a little tired after sitting upright for a long time, so she stretched. Stretch your hands back and open your chest, making the alluring curves of ultimate even more prominent. Even Arasawa Tatsuki, who is a woman, can't help but stare at her friend's figure. Compared with her own slender breasts, Orihime is really too big. Even a woman likes herself, let alone a man, couldn't help but want to reach out and touch it. Orihime, if you become pregnant and have a baby in the future, you can save money on milk powder. Unlike me, I have to spend a lot of money on milk powder. Inoue Orihime blushed a little. Long way, what are you talking about? Really, it's not that exaggerated. You have to have confidence in yourself. If you eat more papaya, you will definitely become plumper. Gululu. It seems that due to the astonishing scale in front of him, which consumes a lot of energy, Inoue Orihime quickly became hungry, and his stomach also made a growl. Ah ha ha. Inoue Orihime covered her belly in embarrassment. I'm just a little hungry. It's okay. Don't worry about me. Arasawa Tatsuki glanced at Inoue Orihime's expression. He was obviously hungry, but he told himself not to worry. It is this that makes me unable to help but want to take care of you. Arasawa Tatsuki scratched his head. Speaking of which, I'm hungry too. Why don't we go to a 24-hour store to buy some papaya or something to eat? Ah, Long Gui, are you hungry too? Then let's go quickly and buy some food. Inoue Orihime immediately stood up with a smile, his hands and feet as happy as a penguin. So the two of them turned off the lights, closed the door, and walked downstairs along the stairs attached to the wall, heading towards the convenience store under the moonlight and lights at night. After arriving at the convenience store, the two bought 2 large papayas, one for each person, plus some snacks, and were ready to go back. Unexpectedly, I saw an amazing scene on the way back. There was an audible bang, and the wall of Kurosaki Ichigo's house was suddenly knocked open by something invisible. Hey, what's going on? Inoue Orihime and Arasawa Tatsuki looked at each other and felt that this was not an easy matter. This world. Rukia Kuchiki stands on a high telephone pole, and 2 hell butterflies are flying past her. Below, some humans who had stayed up late at night passed by. She recalled a saying describing Shinigami, "We are afraid of the invisible." It is precisely because they cannot see it that ordinary humans do not understand what is happening, so they are even more afraid. Originally, I didn't plan to come to this world to eliminate the void today. But after hearing that there was an accident during the Soul Burial internship, and that Su Chen was in that team, and was still in the present world and had not returned to Soul Society, I couldn't help but come over to see the situation. I hope nothing happens to Su Chen. At this time, Rukia Kuchiki also saw Su Chen coming towards her. There is a cat parked on Su Chen's shoulder, and the clothes on her body are no longer the previous Spiritual Arts Academy uniform. Instead, he put on a clean and neat white clothes, looking even more exciting than before. Then he jumped off the roof. Su Chen, are you okay? Su Chen was not surprised when he saw Rukia Kuchiki. He had already sensed Rukia Kuchiki's Reiatsu as early as the moment she came to this world. He nodded to her and said, "Now a hollow has appeared. Let's go over and see the situation." Okay. Rukia Kuchiki followed Su Chen without hesitation. Inoue Orihime and Arasawa Tatsuki entered Kurosaki Ichigo's home through a hole in the wall. At this time, Kurosaki Ichigo's house was in a mess. Kurosaki Ichigo's father was even swept to a corner and lay there, not knowing whether he was alive or dead. Then I saw something grabbing Kurosaki Yuzu, and the little girl actually floated up out of thin air. Kurosaki Yuzu has also experienced such a scene for the first time. I couldn't help crying and shed tears. What is going on? Something caught me, and it hurt so much. She tried hard to struggle, but she couldn't break free at all. Instead, the hand holding her became tighter and tighter, as if she wanted to pop her like a balloon. Ah 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 ah. Kurosaki Yuzu screamed in pain. Without thinking too much, Inoue Orihime rushed forward to rescue Yuzu. Orihime. Arasawa Tatsuki stretched out his hand to pull out Inoue Orihime, but the other party's movements were surprisingly fast. His hand only had time to touch the corner of her clothes, and before he could firmly grasp it, the corner of her clothes had already left her. It slipped away from his own hands. Ah, Inoue Orihime looks like. She bumped into something, but with her current strength she still couldn't shake that thing at all. Then he felt a powerful force sweeping him away. With a pop, he spat out a mouthful of blood and hit the wall. Inoue. Arasawa Tatsuki yelled, with a look of horror in his eyes. What happened? Who is attacking them? Why can't I even see the enemy? Is all this an illusion? Although he was thinking this in his mind, his body still rushed forward to check on Inoue Orihime. Unexpectedly, something hit his abdomen, and he suddenly felt like he was being hit. It was like a car crashed, flying directly several meters away, hitting the ground hard and sliding some distance away. No matter what kind of monster you are, you must die. Kurosaki Shali picked up the chair with both hands and rushed forward. He tried to save Yuzu, but she also flew out upside down. There was a look of despair on her face. Are you saying that your whole family is going to die here? Ichigo ni, at least he will tell his brother to run before he dies. Shali, Yuzu, Kurosaki Ichigo, who was rushing down from upstairs, could not remain rational when he saw this situation. He waved his fist and rushed towards Yuzu. As a result, he was knocked away okay, and fell down. On the ground. Seeing this scene, Kurosaki Shali couldn't help but despair. I originally thought that at least Ichigo-san could escape, but now the whole family is going to die here. Kurosaki Yuzu couldn't help but shed tears from the corners of his eyes. It was desolate, but also had a kind of tragic beauty. Inoue Orihime struggled to get up and move towards Long Gui, but the pain in her body made her movements very reluctant. It's all his own fault that Long Gui got hurt. If he hadn't rushed forward, Long Gui wouldn't have fallen to the ground because of this, and he wouldn't have known whether he would live or die. Will everyone die here like this? Inoue Orihime had tears in his eyes. Just when everyone was in despair, a figure in white suddenly appeared in the room. There is also a black cat parked on his shoulder. Base. A dark knife was unsheathed. Quick, that knife was too fast. For this kind of emptiness that has hurt too many people. Su Chen didn't even want to let it go to Soul Society. Better to just destroy it. Since it was a black sword, there wasn't even a flash of sword light. He slashed at something invisible in the air. Suddenly, the monster that could not be eliminated even with all the efforts of everyone seemed to be easily eliminated by this knife. Kurosaki Yuzu fell down. Su Chen stretched out his hands and caught the thin girl with short hair. With tears on her face, the girl looked at Su Chen blankly. It was this man who saved himself. Everyone also stared blankly at the young man in white. Shocked and speechless. In the eyes of himself and others, he is a monster that cannot be defeated even with all his strength. Can't even see west. In the man's hand, it was a light knife. It was as easy as writing a horizontal line with a brush, and it was solved. Who is he? He actually has such a magical ability. Chapter 57. From this moment on, you are destined to be a god. Everyone had mixed reactions after seeing Su Chen. Kurosaki Yuzu looked at Su Chen with pear blossoms in his eyes, and was stunned for a moment. Su Chen touched Kurosaki Yuzu's head and put her on the ground. Then Kaido light flashed in his hand. Kurosaki Yuzu only felt a warm light enveloped him. It was so warm, and the pain on his body disappeared, as if he had returned to his mother's arms. Kurosaki Yuzu felt a warmth in his heart and stared at Su Chen without blinking. It was this man who appeared when he was in danger and saved him like a master in a fairy tale. You, what's your name? Su Chen. Kurosaki Yuzu clenched his little hand and placed it on his heart, silently chanting Su Chen's name, as if he wanted to put him in his heart. After taking a look, there were a lot of injured people, and it seemed that it was a bit laborious to treat them one by one. So Su Chen stood up, and the Kaido light in his hand expanded from the size of one person to the size of the entire room. Seeing such a large-scale Kaido, Rukia Kuchiki couldn't help but be shocked. Even if I am good at Kaido, I simply cannot treat so many people at the same time, right? Originally, when Kaido was created, it was an extremely sophisticated technique for repairing spiritual beings. Just like surgeries in this world, I have never heard of anyone being able to perform multiple surgeries and treat multiple people at the same time. No matter how good the medical skills are, they can't do it, right? This is a question of a person's limits, not whether he can do it. Su Chen's Kaido can reach such a level, which is simply beyond imagination. In other words, Kaido has evolved to a higher level in the hands of Su Chen. An ability that comes from Kaido, but far exceeds it. In addition, what shocked Rukia Kuchiki even more was Su Chen's strength. Unexpectedly, after this soul burial internship, Su Chen would have the power to kill Shu with one sword. And looking at Su Chen, she seems to be extremely relaxed and comfortable. The action of drawing out the knife was even more decisive, without any hesitation or pause. Although the Shu was not that strong, even if he wanted to defeat it, he would never be able to kill it with just one blow like Su Chen. And when did Su Chen own two Zanpakuto? No. The moment the pitch-black knife was unsheathed, I felt a deep palpitation in my heart. It was as if his vision was about to disappear, his pupils couldn't help but dilate, his body seemed to be unable to make any resistance, and even his heartbeat stopped for a moment. It seems that if you are hit by that knife, you will really die. It is not the death of reincarnation from this world to Soul Society, or the death of reincarnation from Soul Society to this world, but a real destruction. Because from that sword, what I felt was not the purifying power of the Shinigami, but the destructive power of the Quincy. In just one afternoon and one soul burial internship, what terrible things did Su Chen experience? Such a drastic change has occurred. Is he still the Su Chen he knows? Or, I have never really known Su Chen. At this moment, Su Chen, who had taken off his school uniform and put on a white suit, had an unparalleled aura about him. Make yourself feel familiar yet strange. He was so close in front of me, as if he could reach out and grab it, but yet he seemed so far away that he couldn't reach even with all his strength. Inoue Orihime slowly got up from the ground. He was surprised to find that his injuries recovered quickly under the treatment of the green light. The wound healed quickly and stopped bleeding. She looked at Su Chen in surprise. As this, a miracle. For Inoue Orihime, who has not yet been exposed to the world of Shinigami, Su Chen is indeed like a descended god. Who is he? What is the knife in his hand? I always feel that this young man is full of mysteries that I don't know about. I just felt that this light was surprisingly warm, just like the light I had dreamed of, lighting up the dark world. If I could have some kind of special ability, I hope that I could also have the ability to heal everyone. At this time, she heard a soft cry from Arasawa Tatsuki not far away, so she immediately ran over and helped Long Gui up. Arasawa Tatsuki was seriously injured. His arm even scratched a trail of blood on the ground. There were also scars on his face. His delicate skin bleeded just by rubbing it, mixing with the gray and black on the ground. Inoue Orihime saw with his own eyes that those wounds gradually healed under the warm light. He couldn't help wiping the tears from the corners of his eyes. Long Gui, are you okay? Arasawa Tatsuki shook his head. I'm fine, thanks to him. The two stood up and bowed to Su Chen. Thank you. Su Chen nodded slightly and said nothing more. Later, Kurosaki Sha Li's injuries were healed, and she quickly went to check on her sister Kurosaki Yuzu. Yuzu, how are you? Kurosaki Yuzu smiled and shook his head. I'm fine, but you are in a panic. Kurosaki Isshin and Kurosaki Ichigo also stood up. Kurosaki Ichigo came over, made a fist with his right hand and bumped his chest, and said boldly, "Thank you Su Chen for your life-saving grace. If you have any trouble in the future, just come to me." Su Chen looked with interest at the middle-aged Kurosaki Isshin, who was sitting on the ground with a shaggy face and a slovenly appearance. Kurosaki Isshin, whose real name is Shiba Isshin, is a member of the Shiba family, one of the 5 nobles of the Soul Society, and the former captain of the 10th Division. It's just that he has been accustomed to the human body for too long, and he doesn't know how many % of his strength is left. But cutting an ordinary hollow should be a matter of using your hands. Then he looked at Kurosaki Ichigo and said meaningfully, "You don't need to thank me, even if I didn't save you today, nothing will happen to you." What? Kurosaki Ichigo was scratching his head, not understanding, when suddenly a foot kicked him in the face, knocking him to the ground. Ichigo, your performance just now was so useless. You still need more practice. Kurosaki Ichigo doesn't need to look to know that he is Daddy Kurosaki Isshin. You still dare to talk about me? Didn't you fall down just now? Kurosaki Ichigo and Kurosaki Isshin struggled with each other and rolled around on the ground. Kurosaki Sha Li then looked at the person she had cared about for a long time, Rukia Kuchiki, who was standing next to Su Chen. It's just that the other party didn't seem to take action or speak, as if he was in a daze for some reason. By the way, are you Su Chen's friend? It seems that I rarely see you dressed like this. Inoue Orihime and Arasawa Tatsuki were a little surprised when they saw this scene. Sha Li, who are you talking to? Kurosaki Sha Li was stunned. Could it be that the other party is also a soul after death? But why does it look so solid, almost like a real person? Its feet are indeed standing on the ground, completely different from ordinary spirits floating in the air. That's right. Are you Su Chen's girlfriend? Kurosaki Ichigo suppressed Kurosaki Isshin and asked. Rukia Kuchiki was surprised. Unexpectedly, 2 people in this family can see me. Could it be said that these 2 people have spiritual power? It is no wonder that they are targeted by Shu. Kurosaki Yuzu looked at his sister, Sha Li, and held his sister's soft and delicate hand. I really envy you and your brother for being able to see spirits, unlike me who can only see an outline. Rukia Kuchiki turned to look at Su Chen and asked, do you want to replace the potion with memory? The so-called memory replacement potion was used after Shinigami was accidentally discovered. The user's memories will be randomly replaced with other events. This way you won't know about Shinigami's existence. Su Chen smiled, walked to the head of the long table, pulled out a chair, sat down, and said in a final tone, no need, they are also relevant people, it doesn't hurt to tell them. He tapped his fingers on the table. Everyone, please sit down. Rukia, please explain the truth of this world. Inoue Orihime couldn't help but clench his hands and put them on his heart. She and Arasawa Tatsuki didn't understand a word of the conversation from the very beginning. What spirit? What do you see in outline? Who is involved? What is the truth about the world? Could it be that there are secrets in this world that they don't know about? Contact us. The invisible monster that was inexplicable just now attacked here. I always feel like I've encountered something extraordinary. Then he tilted his head and said with a smile, Longwei and I qualified to know about this matter. If you can't reveal the matter to us, we will definitely obey your order. It doesn't matter, you and Longwei are also involved in the incident. Kurosaki Yuzu and Kurosaki Sha Li sat down one after another, looking curious about the baby. Kurosaki Ichigo didn't say much. He pulled out a chair and sat down, then looked at Rukia Kuchiki and asked, what is all this going on? Kurosaki Isshin sighed. Unexpectedly, the peace in his home was broken, so he sat cross-legged and listened silently outside the crowd. Inoue Orihime could not see Rukia Kuchiki at first, but gradually she seemed to be able to see a transparent shadow. Then the shadow became more and more solid, and finally it could be seen. What is going on? Some of them opened their eyes wide in disbelief and shouted, look. He grabbed Longwei's shoulders with both hands and kept rocking back and forth. His body also swayed, and the plumpness on his chest was even more turbulent. I know, I saw it too, stop shaking it. Arasawa Tatsuki said helplessly as the world in front of him flickered. Kurosaki Yuzu was also surprised to find that he could only see a virtual shadow, but now he could see a real form. What's going on? After Su Chen poured a cup of hot tea, he held the steaming teacup with both hands and said, when I was treating you just now, I activated the spiritual power in your body. After you have spiritual power, you will naturally be able to see the spirit body. Rukia Kuchiki Shikai explained. My name is Rukia Kuchiki, I come from Soul Society, and my identity is Shinigami. After death of people in this world, their souls will turn into good spirits called Jung. Quote. For various reasons, those whose souls linger on this world and refuse to leave, or those who cannot bear the pain in their hearts, will gradually degenerate and turn into evil spirits called hollows. Quote. One of my tasks is to guide the whole to Soul Society through soul burial. Quote. The second task is to use the Zanpakuto in your hand to sublimate and purify the sins of the Hollow, and send them to the Soul Society. Kurosaki Ichigo touched his chin. So, the evil spirit named Hollow was the one who attacked us just now. That's right. Rukia Kuchiki nodded. Although I really want to lift the table and tell you who will believe what you said, but now the reality is in front of me, I have to believe it. Kurosaki Ichigo crossed his arms and said. The reason why that Zuhui attacked you is precisely because you possess spiritual power. It is the best supplement for weak people. Quote. Spiritual power. Kurosaki Ichigo was surprised, as this why I can see hollows. Moreover, as long as you still have spiritual power, Shuhui's attack on you is not an accident. Things like today will happen again in the future. Rukia Kuchiki's words were like a hammer hitting Kurosaki Ichigo's heart, leaving him stunned for a long time. Will we encounter monsters like that again in the future? When the time comes, how can I protect my father and sisters if I have no power? Inoue Orihime stretched out his hand and nodded cutely, so that's it. Ichigo. Don't worry, Daddy is here and will protect you. Kurosaki Ishin flew up again and knocked down Kurosaki Ichigo. Kurosaki Ichigo was not in the mood to fight with his father, because he was very confused at this time and didn't know what to do. In such a dangerous situation just now, if Su Chen hadn't descended like a god, would the sisters have been saved? Then, Inoue Orihime looked at Su Chen curiously, so Su Chen, are you a Shinigami like Miss Kuchiki? Me. Su Chen stared at the tea in her hand. The tea leaves are swirling in the cup. His own figure is reflected in the clear water. That was a young man with heavy bones and cold blood. Are you a Shinigami? Or human? Or maybe a Quincy? Or maybe none of them? Have you ever truly recognized yourself? Or what kind of person do you want to be? After a moment of silence, Su Chen laughed. Smile brightly. Smile with relief. He put down the teacup in his hand, crossed the fingers of his hands in front of his abdomen, folded his legs together, and leaned back slightly on the back of the chair, making his field of vision wider. See species. A storm that the world cannot see. Answered. You can think of me as a Shinigami, or you can think of me as a human, or you can think of me as a god. Yes, Su Chen has decided to become a god. Be the supreme in this world. Appreciate the cold scenery from high places. From this moment on, Su Chen's state of mind seemed to have reached a higher level. An indescribable confidence appeared in Su Chen. From this moment on, even without heaven-defying understanding, he is enough to reverse everything. Just because he is Su Chen. Rukia Kuchiki stared blankly at the high-spirited Su Chen in front of her. It seems that he at this moment is the real him. This Su Chen is invincible, everything is in my hands, full of confidence, and will never be confused. Shihuin Yoruichi, who had been paused on Su Chen's shoulder without speaking, couldn't help but be a little shocked, and his cat eyes widened. Is this the true magnanimity of this guy? This kind of temperament allows the enemy to be arrogant, but still remains calm and calm. She vaguely felt that from this moment on, Su Chen was destined to become a god. Su Chen, maybe choosing to follow you is my most correct decision. Chapter 58 The sword light is like thunder. Immediately, Shihuin Yoruichi's golden vertical pupils turned flexibly, stretched out his cat's paw to lick it, and slowly sat down on Su Chen's shoulders, placing the weight of the cat on Su Chen's body. It's a mess here. Please clean it up. I'll go to the rooftop to blow some air. Although Yuzu and Natsuri are still young girls, their hands-on abilities are not weak. As the daughters of Kurosaki Ishin, their strength is beyond that of ordinary people, so it doesn't take much effort to put them away. Inoue Orihime and Arasawa Tatsuki also went to help them. Su Chen came to the rooftop, put his hands in his pockets and looked around. Kurosaki Ichigo's house is both a place where they live and a hospital called Kurosaki Hospital. It is a 3-story independent building that can usually handle some simple symptoms and surgeries. It is said that it is a hospital, but it is actually more like a small clinic. Above the sky, a flash of lightning pierced the sky, leaving a spiderweb-like crack. Then there was a rumble of thunder. It's going to rain. Kurosaki Ichigo walked up from downstairs and came to Su Chen. He solemnly said, I hope Mr. Su Chen can teach me fighting skills. I want to have power. I figured it out. Maybe Mr. Su Chen can save us once or twice, but he can't save us every time, so I must have enough power to protect my family. Su Chen's expression remained unchanged. He had already expected this. Go to the Urahara store and ask Urahara Kazuki about this. He will help you practice and awaken the power of Shinigami. The power of Shinigami. Kurosaki Ichigo was a little surprised. Can he also have the power of Shinigami? Aren't he an ordinary human? Although he still doesn't understand what is going on, Kurosaki Ichigo already knows what to do. Thank you Mr. Su Chen. Then Kurosaki Ichigo left the rooftop and went to help his sisters clean up. Kurosaki Ishin walked up and took out a clamshell lighter and cigarettes. With a click, the lighter opened, and a red flame came out, like a cigarette in your hand. You took a puff, and then exhaled a stream of white smoke. I didn't expect that you have been a human for so long that you have also developed the habit of smoking. Although Su Chen did not look back, he was already aware of everything. Kurosaki Ishin walked to Su Chen's side and said, I can't help it, that's how it is as a human being. Aren't you going to tell Kurosaki Ichigo that you are a Shinigami? I haven't figured out what to say yet. After Kurosaki Ishin took a few puffs, he threw the cigarette butt on the ground, rubbed it with the sole of his shoe a few times, and stamped out the sparks. After all, that kid is quite guilty of his mother's death. Always thought it was his fault. Your son came to see me just now. Well, I know that as the eldest brother in the family, he naturally wants to protect his sister. It's not surprising that he wants to practice. Please take care of this. I owe you a favor. Kurosaki Ishin paused and continued. And, thank you for saving Yuzu and Shali today. You're welcome, both children are very cute and I like them very much. Yes, they are all very cute. Back then Masaki was. At this moment, Kurosaki Ishin seemed to hear some footsteps, and Kurosaki Ishin's serious face immediately became cheerful. Haha, I knew you must have fallen in love with my two beautiful daughters. There is no way anyone can make them so cute. Anyone would like them. It's a pity that they are daddy's little cotton-padded jackets. However, before Kurosaki Ishin finished speaking, Kurosaki Shali covered Kurosaki Ishin's face with a black face. Go to hell, die pervert. So Kurosaki Ishin fell down with a black shoe mark on his face, crying. Why? Why do you treat your father like this? It's so sad. My daughter is older and doesn't love her father. Then his arms and legs swayed like waves and he walked away. Kurosaki Shali also held a small blue hot water bottle in her hand and walked behind Su Chen. Brother Su Chen, it's a little cold on the rooftop. This is for you to cover your hands. In Kurosaki Yuzu's hand was a bowl of ginger soup, which she had just made with her own hands. Brother Su Chen, please drink some ginger soup to ward off the cold. Su Chen received a bowl of ginger soup and a hot water bottle. After finishing the drink, she handed the bowl to Yuzu. When the girl saw Su Chen drinking the soup she made, she ran to wash the dishes with a smile on her face. It seems that being able to cook for others is something that makes her very happy. After the two left, Inoue Orihime and Arasawa Tatsuki then went up to the rooftop. Inoue Orihime looked at Su Chen for a few times, hesitating about what to say. Looking at Su Chen's surprisingly handsome appearance, I felt a little lost for a moment. It wasn't until Arasawa Tatsuki waved his hand in front of her eyes that she came back to her senses. Aren't we here to say thank you? Why are you in a daze? Quote. Quote. Inoue Orihime came to his senses in a daze. Arasawa Tatsuki sighed. Sometimes Inoue was in a daze like this, and she didn't know what fantasies she was thinking about. She was really worried about whether she would be in danger when crossing the road. Inoue Orihime put his hands on his heart, bowed deeply to Su Chen, and the plumpness of his chest trembled. Thank you Mr. Su Chen for saving the two of us this time. My name is Inoue Orihime, and her name is Arasawa Tatsuki. We are both from 10 school and studying at Karakura 10th High School. He pointed in a direction. You can still see the location of my home from here. It's in that direction. Mr. Su Chen is welcome to come over and play at any time if you are free. Arasawa Tatsuki also bowed deeply, but her figure is very different from Inoue Orihime's, and there is nothing to shake off. No matter what, it's all thanks to Mr. Su Chen this time. Su Chen turned around and glanced at Inoue Orihime. The hairpin on your head was given by your brother, right? Is this what Mr. Su Chen is talking about? Inoue Orihime took off the two flower-shaped hairpins that were pinned to his ears and placed them in the palms of his hands. My brother gave me this. I wear it all the time. On the body. That day, my brother bought me a pair of hairpins with flowers. I don't know why I just didn't like it, so I had an unprecedented quarrel with my brother about it. Unexpectedly, that was the last time I saw my brother. I finished my meal without saying a word, and then fell asleep with my face facing the wall. I didn't even say hello to him before he went out. At this time, a rumble of thunder sounded. Light raindrops fell. Like strings of silver threads hanging down from the curtain called the sky. At the same time, a hollow roar sounded. Ho 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 ho. Orihime, I think you are really suffering. I saw a huge virtual creature with a human head and a snake body climbing onto the rooftop, wearing a white mask and with red claws above its eyes. I originally wanted to endure it a little longer, but I just couldn't bear it anymore. I'm so lonely, so lonely, so lonely, so lonely, so lonely. Smell the smell of your soul. I really, really want to eat you. This way, you can be with me forever. Inoue Orihime saw such a monster and couldn't help but keep retreating. You, who are you? Inoue Hao was stunned for a moment, then yelled crazily. Orihime, you don't even recognize me. I'm so sad. I am going to kill you. As he spoke, Inoue Hao stretched out his huge claw towards Inoue Orihime, intending to pierce her chest. However, a snow-white sword flashed past. The sword light was surprisingly white, astonishingly white. In such a night, the light of the sword seemed to be able to tear apart the night. Like a bolt of lightning, the moment the sword was released, it illuminated the world into daylight. Inoue Hao's arm was cut off like that, and there was no way to stop the sword light from being shared. The severed hand fell to the ground, turning into a spirit and dissipating. Inoue Hao was shocked and angry. Are you here to steal my Orihime too? Su Chen was holding a hot water bottle in one hand and chopping grass in the other. His eyes were dull and he didn't pay attention to Inoue Hao at all. Hadō 1. Rush. A burst of spiritual power burst out from Su Chen's fingertips, destroying Inoue Hao's mask into 5 or 6 pieces and falling down. Even though Su Chen had controlled the power, this Kido didn't knock Shang Hao to the ground. Inoue Orihime finally confirmed at this moment that the monster in front of him was actually his brother Inoue Hao. She widened her eyes and said in disbelief, Are you really my brother? Inoue Hao was lying on the ground, raindrops hitting his face, washing away the blood on his face and arms. When I was 15, my sister was born. It's better to say it's a girl's death than a sister. Both parents are gangsters. Whenever their children cry, they beat them until they stop crying. When I was 18 years old, I took my sister and left that home. We've been together since then. Later after I died, she still prayed every day at first. But later on, I gradually stopped praying. I think, if Orihime can't live for me, at least, he must die for me. Inoue Orihime cried. I'm sorry. I prayed for my eldest brother every day at first, with a sad look on my face. But then I felt that I can't let my eldest brother see me sad every day, otherwise you will worry about me. I should let you see me happy, so that you can know that I am living a good life, and you can leave with peace of mind. But, I didn't expect that such behavior would actually make my eldest brother feel lonely. Inoue Hao was silent for a while before saying, Of course I know you don't want me to worry by doing this, but I still want you to pray for me, so that you at least belong to me. Arasawa Tatsuki said. What are you looking at? Isn't the hairpin on Inoue's head what you gave her? Whether it is a dead person or a living person, they are all equally lonely. It is too selfish to say that you are the loneliest. And, there is never anything, yours Orihime, she only belongs to herself. Inoue Hao was stunned for a moment and saw the hairpin in the palm of Inoue Orihime's hand. He thought she had lost it long ago. When did you start neglecting that hairpin? All that was left in his mind was Orihime's complaints about the gift he chose. In that resentment, he gradually fell. It turns out that you have never forgotten me. A relieved smile appeared on Inoue Hao's face. It has already felt that its body is turning into spirits and disappearing bit by bit. Su Chen's knife was really powerful. Even just cutting off his arm was enough to purify his sins. Inoue Orihime's face was full of emotions. Brother, on the day you went out, I always had something to say to you. Brother, walk slowly. After watching Inoue Hao disappear little by little and reincarnate to Soul Society, Inoue Orihime wiped the tears from the corners of his eyes. Bowing respectfully to Su Chen, no matter what, Mr. Su Chen has saved me twice, I must thank Mr. Su Chen. When will Mr. Su Chen be free? What kind of food would you like to eat? Can I cook for you? Although I don't know that Mr. Su Chen is dissatisfied with my cooking skills, the only way I can want to repay him is this, although it is still not as good as Mr. Su Chen's kindness to me. But please be sure to ask Mr. Su Chen not to refuse. By the way, where does Mr. Su Chen plan to live? When the time comes, I will come to invite Mr. Su Chen. Su Chen's eyes were calm. You don't have to be so anxious. Inoue Orihime twirled his long hair with his fingertips, looked at his toes and said, I just feel that Mr. Su Chen is very far away from us, as if he will fly away at any time. If we don't invite him this time, we may not be able to see you again next time. Su Chen smiled and said, Don't worry, there will still be opportunities to meet. After saying that, Su Chen jumped up from the rooftop. Rukia Kuchiki was already waiting for Su Chen at the door with her sword in hand. Rukia, let's go. 2 people Shunpo left Kurosaki Ichigo's house. While Shunpo was in the air, Rukia asked, Su Chen, what are your next plans? Are you going back to Soul Society? Su Chen's eyes were like stars, and he said calmly, Of course I have to go back to Soul Society, but before that, I need to take out the Hogyoku from your body. Hogyoku. Rukia Kuchiki and Su Chen stay on a rooftop. In the dark night, the rain seemed to be getting heavier. Under the patter of rain, it seemed that everything around them had turned into a blank space. Only the 2 of them and the world where they lived were left in the world. Thanks to Su Chen's Reiatsu, those raindrops were easily bounced away before they even touched Su Chen's clothes. The so-called Hogyoku, there are 2 pieces, developed by Aizen Sosuke and Urahara Kazuki respectively. Group. The 4 fighting techniques of Shinigami, slicing technique, white hits, footwork, Hadō. Each one has its ultimate strength. No matter how powerful any ability is, as long as it is a Shinigami, it will encounter a bottleneck in the strength of the soul, so it will not be able to continue to grow. In other words, that's the limit of Shinigami. Rukia Kuchiki couldn't help being a little surprised after hearing this. For her, the limits of Shinigami are still far out of reach. Isn't there a way to break through it and let all abilities exceed their limits and be strengthened? With such doubts, Aizen Sosuke and Urahara Kazuki got the same answer, which is Shinigami's hollow. By removing the boundaries between the 2 extreme individuals, we can enable them to develop towards a higher realm. To achieve this goal, both Urahara Kazuki and Aizen Sosuke developed a substance called Hogyoku. Quote. It can dissolve the boundaries between Hollow and Shinigami in an instant, allowing life to evolve to a higher level. To prove that it was feasible, Aizen Sosuke also conducted experiments on Shinigamiization. Rukia Kuchiki's eyes widened with shock. The Hollow experiment 100 years ago was actually carried out by Aizen Sosuke. So Shiba Kaien's death was also caused by Aizen Sosuke's experiment. After realizing the danger of this thing, Urahara Kazuki wanted to destroy it. Yet he could not find a way to destroy Hogyoku. So he hid the piece of Hogyoku he made deep in your soul. F. Chapter 59 Conversation with Aizen, the two decide the fate of Soul Society. What? Hogyoku is inside me? Rukia Kuchiki looked surprised. She stretched out her hands in disbelief, and the rain hit her hands, washing those white and delicate hands. It is so smooth that even when rain falls on it, it will flow down. In such an ordinary soul, there is a Hogyoku hidden inside. I am afraid no one would have expected it, right? Even Rukia Kuchiki herself couldn't believe that she, who had never shown anything unusual, could have something like Hogyoku in her body. Then. How do I take out the Hogyoku? It's very simple, but the process may not be easy for you. Come on, I'm not afraid of any pain. Rukia Kuchiki opened her hands towards Su Chen, stepped back slightly, and opened her chest unreservedly, indicating that Su Chen could do whatever she wanted. A pair of black eyes shining like stars in the sky were staring at Su Chen, who was much taller than him. Without blinking, he did not feel fear because he was about to take out some substance from his soul. Instead, there was a hint of fear at the corner of his mouth. With a faint smile. The look in those star-like eyes was one of absolute trust and dependence. She believed that Su Chen could not harm her. That's why I gave everything I had to him without reservation. Su Chen's right hand is upward, and his spiritual power is concentrated in the palm of his hand. Suddenly, a circular magic circle rose up around the two people. 6 paths pillars of spiritual power rise at the 6 corners of the circle. Su Chen's right hand was wrapped with a layer of spiritual film and he pointed it toward Rukia Kuchiki's chest. 190. Rukia Kuchiki watched as Su Chen's hand came closer to her chest little by little, and the powerful spiritual power seemed to turn into streaks of lightning that shone and flowed in the magic circle. Seeing Su Chen's hand getting closer, Rukia Kuchiki's eyes closed little by little, with a peaceful smile on her face. The moment Su Chen's hand touched her chest, it was not as if it had touched a spirit body, but as if it had touched some kind of liquid, causing ripples in circles. Like passing through water, it easily penetrated her chest and took out some kind of bright substance from the depths of her dark soul. It was a black Madara sphere, suspended in a polygonal transparent package, with mysterious light wrapped around it, as dark as the starry sky of the universe. The moment matter appeared, a magical wave was transmitted. It seems that as long as you have it, you will have the ability to evolve infinitely and realize your wishes. However, its power seems to be like a flickering light bulb, which seems a little unstable and seems to have not yet reached its perfection. Rukia Kuchiki couldn't help but let out a groan when Su Chen's hand passed through her chest. She didn't know if it was for psychological reasons, but she couldn't help but have a blush on her face. After Su Chen's hand left his chest, the hole in his soul was restored bit by bit. During the recovery process, Rukia Kuchiki seemed to have no strength at all. Her body fell softly towards Su Chen and leaned into Su Chen's arms. After taking a few deep breaths, the hole in his chest finally recovered, but Rukia Kuchiki did not leave Su Chen's arms. She grabbed Su Chen's clothes with both hands and wrinkled his clothes slightly. With her face pressed against his chest, she could still hear his strong heartbeat, staring at the Hogyoku at Su Chen's fingertips. As this Hogyoku? Rukia Kuchiki asked curiously. It is such a small thing, but it actually has the power to break the boundaries between Shinigami and Hollow. Su Chen also looked at Hogyoku, which was emitting blue-violet light. Under the light, it was Rukia Kuchiki's delicate and pretty face leaning on his arms. Although I have known about the existence of Hogyoku for a long time, this is the first time I have touched it with my own hands. The moment he saw Hogyoku, the world seen in Su Chen's eyes seemed completely different from the one seen in Rukia Kuchiki's eyes. In his eyes, he not only saw the surface of Hogyoku, but also the core, structure, and composition of Hogyoku. It was like he had reached a higher perspective at this moment. From this perspective, Hogyoku's past, production process, and production technology, all emerged in Su Chen's eyes. Like an orange, it is peeled off layer by layer, and every inch and every part can be seen extremely clearly. In Su Chen's pupils that exuded azure light, a large amount of collapsed data was reflected. In an instant, or as if several years had passed, Su Chen had mastered all Hogyoku's data and information. A confident smile appeared on his lips. So, is this Hogyoku? It's as if he has seen through Hogyoku's abilities and everything about Hogyoku, and understands it thoroughly. Su Chen put away Hogyoku. Let's go back to Soul Society and meet Aizen Sosuke. Pull out Zanpakuto and open a world-traveling gate in the void in front of you. Then he jumped into it holding Rukia Kuchiki in his left hand and Shihuan on his shoulders. After crossing the barrier, we came to Soul Society. A place like a suburb. There are rivers, trees, flowers and grass. There is also a pavilion on the river, surrounded by many wooden team buildings, practice fields, etc. When Rukia Kuchiki saw this, her eyes lit up and she said, "This is the 13th division. Su Chen, would you like to go with me to the 13th division to have a look?" Su Chen shook his head. "Go back by yourself, I have another place to go." "Oh, then be careful." Rukia Kuchiki looked at Su Chen hesitantly, but never took a step forward. "What's wrong?" When Su Chen was about to ask, Rukia Kuchiki stood up on tiptoes and kissed Su Chen on the face. Quote. The girl's kiss was gentle, soft, and soft. It's like a bubble in a dream, very light and soft, as if it will break if you touch it with your fingertips. I felt cold again, like a smooth ice cream touching my face. That feeling is very comfortable. The red lips parted at the first touch, but the girl who had never behaved like this before even turned red at the base of her ears. Then the girl ran away without looking back, not daring to look at Su Chen again. Shihuan Yoruichi looked at it all with cat eyes and said with a smile, "I didn't expect you to be quite popular with girls." Su Chen looked at the direction Rukia Kuchiki was leaving and smiled. Then he stroked Shihuan Yoruichi's head. As a cat, Shihuan Yoruichi feels quite comfortable and can't help but want to meow. He headed towards the location of the Great Spiritual Book Corridor. It is also where Central 46 is located. Su Chen is still thinking about Kido, who is over 90. Those Kido should be extremely powerful and belong to the forbidden technique field. Most people may not even be qualified to learn them. Soon, Su Chen arrived outside Central 46. And there were 2 secret guards from the secret mobile team at the door. I don't know how much is hidden in the dark. The sound of rain became louder and louder. Little by little, the light rain turned into moderate rain. In such a rainy night, it seemed that everyone was asleep. However, Su Chen, who was moving forward, seemed to sense something and stopped in his tracks. The stopped straw sandals stepped into a puddle, splashing water droplets one after another. Lightning pierced the sky, and Aizen Sosuke's Reiatsu appeared clearly in the 46th room. Perhaps others could not detect Aizen Sosuke's Reiatsu, but in the eyes of Su Chen, who was not affected by Kyoka Suigetsu, it was extremely obvious. It seems that room 46 has been killed by him. However, even though he was aware of this situation, Su Chen's face remained calm, and there was even a faint smile on the corner of his mouth. It seems that the moment when Aizen Sosuke puts on hair gel is not far away. Yoruichi, come down first. Shihuan Yoruichi tilted his head in confusion and looked at Central 46 in front of him. If he were the princess of the Shihuan family before, he might be able to bring Su Chen in, but now that he has defected from Soul Society, he might be secretly maneuvered as soon as he appears. Let the team arrest him, even if he is the former commander of the army. Quote. I'm going to a place next, and it's no longer suitable to take you with me. Shihuan Yoruichi took a deep look at Su Chen, and without asking any questions, he jumped off his shoulder and jumped to a rooftop, staring down with a pair of golden pupils. I saw Su Chen heading towards Central 46. And the 2 guards at the door seemed to have received some order. Not only did they not stop Su Chen at all, they also opened the door for him. What's happening here? But as the door closed, Shihuan Yoruichi could no longer see what was going on inside. Under the night rain, she slowly sat down and waited quietly for Su Chen. Papa, following the sound of unhurried footsteps. The owner of these footsteps walked into room 46 without any psychological pressure. Walking calmly and naturally. After entering the 46th room, what you see is a bloody hell. These people seemed to have just died, and the blood on their bodies had not yet dried up. It was constantly flowing indoors, making this place look less like the highest decision-making body of Soul Society and more like a hellish scene. Aizen Sosuke was sitting casually on the spot that originally belonged to room 46. Tusen Kanami had a knife hanging on his waist and stood behind Aizen Sosuke. You're finally here, Su Chen. I've been waiting for you, for a long time. It seemed that he had expected Su Chen to come, and seemed to have already felt Su Chen's fierce Reiatsu. There was no surprise on Aizen Sosuke's face. Tusen Kanami's body was a little tense. The moment he saw Su Chen, he seemed to have seen the scene where Su Chen mobilized the spiritual power of the entire Karakura town. Although he could not see with his eyes, he could feel the terrifying power lingering on the 2 knives on Su Chen's body. He couldn't help but press his right hand on the handle of Suzumushi's knife. Only this Zanpakuto is a relic left by Yuta. Holding it, it's like the Song Kuang has never left you. Although after the owner's death, this Zanpakuto lost its special abilities. But after he obtained this Zanpakuto, he injected Reiatsu into it, giving it new abilities suitable for his own use. Aizen Sosuke stretched out his hand and pressed it in the air. His black-rimmed glasses reflected the lightning outside the window, with a faint smile on his lips. Don't be so nervous, Chen Shin. Maybe Su Chen is not our enemy, but our comrade. Aizen Sosuke said calmly, as if everything was under his control. Tisk, 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 your Kyoka Suigetsu is really easy to use. You killed the people in Central 46 so easily, and you are still sitting here safe and sound. No one in the entire Soul Society noticed. Su Chen clapped his hands. Hey, Aizen Sosuke smiled. To each other, I'm also very curious about your two swords. One of them has the ability of absolute cutting power, and the other one is probably the Quincy's soul-destroying ability, right? Just owning one of these two swords is enough to stand at the top, and owning two swords at the same time means that you have integrated the power of Shinigami and Quincy 4.0 into your body. And successfully balanced, at this moment you may have acquired the ability to surpass the limits of Shinigami, which is really scary. Tusen Kanami's hand holding the knife couldn't help but tremble a little. Go beyond the limits of Shinigami and strengthen all abilities to a higher level again. This is what Lord Aizen has been pursuing with the help of Hogyoku. But the Su Chen in front of him had actually broken through the boundaries of life without resorting to Hogyoku's power. How terrifying is this ability? However, there is one more thing that Aizen Sosuke has not said, that is, Su Chen's past is not even recorded in the Great Spirit Book Corridor. It means that it is an absolute secret that even the Great Spirit Book Corridor cannot know. This may mean that Su Chen is someone who has transcended Soul Society. Because the Great Spirit Book Corridor contains all the knowledge and records of Soul Society. Unless Su Chen has already surpassed Soul Society. Su Chen, I've always wanted to have a conversation with you. Perhaps you are the only one who can truly understand me. Quote, as long as you are willing to join my team, together we can make Soul Society unbeatable. Aizen Sosuke stood up from his seat. At this moment, he was full of energy and excitement. Open your arms and embrace the void, as if you are embracing the whole world. This world full of sin has survived for 110,000 years. Like an old man, it is full of decay. It's time to usher in new changes. Quote, rumble. Under the lightning and thunder, the heavy rain finally came. Chapter 60 The Five Nobles chopped the spiritual king into pieces, the secret 10,000 years ago. This moment, it seems that as long as Su Chen nods slightly, the fate of the world will be decided. The lightning and thunder outside the window seemed to illuminate this hellish light for an instant. It also illuminates that idealist Aizen Sosuke. No. If he was the leader, it would no longer be an ideal, but a reality that almost succeeded under careful planning. Tusen Kanami couldn't help but recall the hundreds of years he spent following Aizen Sosuke. After who knows how many years have passed, he couldn't help but have worries and suspicions. He wondered whether Aizen Sosuke deliberately used him as a pawn just because Kyoka Suigetsu was ineffective against him. But when he gradually got to know Aizen Sosuke, Aizen-sama has surpassed the height of Shinigami and is the king of kings. Once, Tusen Kanami tried to stop Aizen Sosuke because his conscience was tormented because his experiment was going to sacrifice the civilians of Rukongai. Aizen Sosuke was not angry, but calmly told Tusen Kanami. The path I take will indeed be based on many sacrifices, but leaving this world to the Shinigami and others as the evil of turning a blind eye to eternal sacrifices. Even if I am rejected by everyone except me, I will not give up on this path. If you still intend to stop me, then polish your sword at all times under my command. But you have to know that the only one who can light up my path is you, who knows both despair and fear, because I don't have these emotions. It was also from this moment that Tusen Kanami understood. For Aizen Sosuke, good and evil are insignificant things. In order to achieve great justice, he did not hesitate to become a villain. Master Aizen's actions will definitely be regarded as treasonous and unethical by the world, but he still sticks to the path he is on, without any hesitation, and carries out his own righteousness. Whenever this happens, Tusen Kanami will think about himself. Did he follow Lord Aizen just to complete his revenge, or did he also have righteousness in his heart? As if seeing through Tusen Kanami's confusion, Aizen Sosuke asked, are you still confused? I can't understand, because I hate Shinigami. Tusen Kanami said, I move forward with the power of hatred. Do I have the qualifications to condemn the world? No. The current world itself is built on sin, but I don't intend to do what the Quincy expect. I want to be the foundation of the world's truth and the Shinigami the symbol and the greatest sacrifice, the spiritual king fell from the sky. Why do you say the Soul King is a sacrifice? Tusen Kanami cannot understand. In his consciousness, the Soul King is the supreme pure existence, the king who controls the world, and to whom all Shinigami must be loyal. Object. Aizen Sosuke paused for a moment. Do you know the complete senjutsu? Please forgive my ignorance. It's not your fault. After all, the Tsunayashiro family has hidden a lot of information. Do you know why Kion would attack a pregnant mother so that she would give birth to a child who can use genjutsu? You mean, it's not that Kion attacks the pregnant mother that causes her to give birth to a fullbringer, but the opposite. Tusen Kanami had a terrible guess in his heart. Perhaps it was precisely because those people had certain substances in their bodies that Shu attacked his mother, and everyone's understanding of the perfection technique still remained a lie. You know, I accomplished Hogyoku by killing some Rukongai souls. I once killed a lot of souls of a girl, but the girl didn't die. Later, after my investigation, Hogyoku absorbed only her. The nails part of the body or part of the Soul King's body that was dug up by Shinigami in ancient times. From this moment on, all impurities in Tsusankanami's thoughts have been eliminated. In other words, those who possess the Soul King fragments in their bodies will have all kinds of incredible abilities. This is not what Shinigami said. It was just used to cover up the sinful reality that the Spirit King was used as a sacrifice. It turns out that Shinigami is such a sinful thing. Soul society is built on sin. Aizen Sosuke said unhurriedly. One day I will reach the other side of the truth, replace it, and stand in the sky with my own will, instead of being a sacrifice influenced by other people's desires. By the way, what do you want then? Yes, as my loyal minister, I can help you realize whatever you want. At this moment, Tsusankanami's voice echoed in his mind. After a few seconds of silence, he said, my wish is. When I change, when I begin to accept this Shinigami world, when you give me peace of mind, please erase me from this world. Really, it is true that one day your actions will be forgiven by the Shinigami, and you should not accept their forgiveness then. Yes, Tsusankanami said with great determination. It was Aizen who told me what true justice is and guided me to understand the truth of this world. If I am forgiven by the Shinigami, it will be justice for me. Negation. When that happens, everything I do now will no longer be justice, but simple murder, murdering countless residents of Shinigami and Rukongai. Everything I have done so far has completely betrayed Jie Kuang. The wish is equivalent to killing her one by one with my own hands. Do you think she would forgive you for what you did if she were still alive? Aizen Sosuke asked. Yes, Jie Kuang will forgive me. Because of this, I hope Master Aizen can kill me without hesitation, and then my body will turn into kindness that she cannot see. Then if one day in the future, I really stand in the sky and create a new world, what will you do then? If you really do it, Aizen-sama, I will commit suicide with my hands stained with blood to purify the new world you created. I swear to you, if you are pitied by the Shinigami in the future, then I will bury you with my own hands. Aizen Sosuke took a deep look at Tsusankanami. It will be my greatest honor to die in the hands of Aizen-sama instead of those evil Shinigami. Tsusankanami knelt on the ground and dedicated his loyalty. Although this happened an unknown number of years ago, in Tsusankanami's mind it still seemed like it had just happened, and he was always alert. At this moment, this Shinigami boy should also choose to join them after knowing the secrets of the world, just like him. After all, what they represent is righteousness. Let's go, Su Chen, I'll take you into the great spiritual book corridor to see everything in this world. Yes, you can stay here and guard. Anyone who breaks in will be shot to death. As you command, Lord Aizen. Tsusankanami's respect for Aizen Sosuke is no longer like respect for his boss, but more like respect for the king of the new world. Watching Master Aizen and Su Chen enter the great spiritual book corridor located in the underground meeting hall. The purpose of Su Chen coming here is to enter the great spiritual book corridor, so naturally he will not refuse. As the two of them stepped in, the door behind them slammed shut. It seemed that what they had stepped into was not only the great spiritual book corridor, but also another unknown world. In the dark space, the sea of knowledge glows with blue light, reflecting different carriers. The two of them were walking on the road. At first they saw books, and then they saw stone tablets with an ancient atmosphere. The two of them kept moving forward in time, but they seemed to be going backwards. Go all the way back to the chaotic world 110,000 years ago. Everything originates from chaos, which is the beginning of the birth of the world. There is no life, no death, no progress, no retreat. There are no so-called boundaries, and everything exists in the form of chaos. I don't know how many years have passed, but cycles have appeared, balance has appeared, humans have appeared, and the void has also appeared. But it was a world without boundaries. Naturally, there was no soul society, the present world, or Hueco Mundo. All living beings lived equally in the same world. The result of this is that the void devours humans unscrupulously without any restraint. The cycle of the soul and the balance of the world have gradually lost their meaning. If it continues like this, the world that was finally born will return to nothingness. So it was as if a being was born in the world that rejected this ending, and it destroyed all the voids in the world, turning their corpses into sand of spirit children, and finally piled them up into a desert. Since then, the concept of death has appeared in human vision for the first time. Thanks to this move, life begins to cycle again and the world becomes more balanced. And the being who was born into the world is the Spirit King. Later, under the power of the Soul King, a group of people with special powers were born, including Ikibe Hyasube and the ancestors of the five nobles. However, their power was never as powerful as the Soul King, and they could only do some things under the Soul King. Do whatever you can. Later, as time passed day by day, their knowledge also grew. If the omnipotent Spirit King continues to destroy the void, then the world will fall into another level of nothingness. In order to prevent the world from being destroyed at the hands of the Spirit King, 5 outstanding people appeared among this group of people with special powers, the ancestors of the 5 nobles. These 5 people have different personalities and have unique views on the origin and return of the world. The founder of the Tsunayashiro family believed that the Soul King's power of annihilation would eventually attack him, and he was deeply worried. The founder of the Kuchiki family believed that the world needed to establish rules so that it could circulate and be balanced forever. The founder of the Shihuan family believed that in order to prevent the world from coming to a standstill, it was necessary to create a larger cycle than the current one. The founder of the Shiba family believed that the Hollows also had hearts, and what they needed more than destroying them were means and methods of purification. Others think that the first thing to deal with is hell. No matter what the ancestors of the five nobles thought, their ultimate goal was the same, which was to create boundaries, difficulties that could separate Z and Li Z in different worlds. That is to create the so-called three realms. To achieve this goal, spiritual power is indispensable. Then the founder of the Tsunayashiro family ignored the dissuasion of the ancestor of the Shiba family and secretly planned a shocking conspiracy. Together with several others, he attacked the Soul King and sealed him. The Spirit King didn't know why, but he seemed to have seen something through the power of omniscience and omnipotence, and did not resist. The five people relied on the Spirit King's power as a basis and as a wedge. Separate the three parts of human, whole and empty. Subsequently, the present world, Soul Society, and Hueco Mundo also gradually formed, and the person responsible for the cycle of all things in the world was called Shinigami. However, the founder of the Tsunayashiro family never knew what the omniscient and omnipotent Soul King had seen. He felt that the Soul King would break through the seal one day and take revenge on himself and others, so to be on the safe side, he chopped off the Soul King's left and right hands, putting it in a situation where it is neither alive nor dead, constantly dying and constantly in the spiral contradiction of resurrection. The heart and legs were also stripped off one after another, and the rest of the internal organs were minced and scattered into the world. However, even so, the Spirit King still has self-awareness. Now, you understand what kind of existence the Spirit King you are loyal to is like. Are you going to continue being a Shinigami? Or rather, join my team and create a new world of equals together? Su Chen didn't answer immediately. Instead, reach out. In an instant, the world has turned upside down. At this moment, everything around the two of them was being dyed bit by bit with a white color. That's snow. White falls from the top of the sky, like ink dripping into clear water, spreading out bit by bit. The whole world is surrounded by wind and snow. It seems that at this moment, Su Chen and Aizen Sosuke are already in a world different from the Great Spirit Book corridor. I saw that this place is a mountain range. The two of them were on the top of the highest snow-capped mountain, overlooking the fate of all living beings, and enjoying the scenery that no living being has ever experienced. The biting wind blew against their faces and bodies like knives, but it didn't make them tremble at all. White snowflakes fell between their hair and on their white clothes. Behind Aizen Sosuke, the Captain Haori with the character, Wu, engraved on it swayed in the wind. The same goes for the white cloak on Su Chen. Aizen Sosuke took a look at the snow-covered sky and the freezing cold scenery from a high place, and exclaimed, "This world, in my hand really amazes me. I'm afraid even the ultimate Kido can't be as good as you are. I really didn't misjudge you. Su Chen, you are the only person who can compare with me." Su Chen gently raised his hand. A chessboard and two stone benches appeared in front of the two people. Azole. Quote. Su Chen didn't say much, just said one word. Aizen Sosuke smiled and said, "If it is your invitation, Su Chen, then I will accompany you." The two sat down on the stone bench facing each other, both with the same tall and straight posture, and the same white clothes like snow. Su Chen picked up a chess piece between his index and middle fingers and pressed it on the chessboard. Aizen Sosuke also picked up a chess piece. At this moment, it seemed that what they were holding were not chess pieces, but living beings. They seemed to use all living beings as chess pieces and the earth as a chessboard. Now that you have finished speaking, let's listen to what I have to say. First of all, why do nobles still hold the power of Soul Society if they are so weak? 10,000 years ago, they were indeed the strongest people in the world, and they shaped the world today, so they naturally became the ones in power. After all, the rules of the world are all. It was established by them. Quote, although the ancestors of the five great nobles are the best among the people, their descendants may not be. Maybe the second generation or the third generation is still good. However, 110,000 years have passed. This time has been too long. It has been so long that their noble class has become decrepit like an old man. So new strong men came into being, such as you, Yamamoto Genryusai Shigekuni, Yunohana Retsu, Zaraki Kenpachi, Urahara Kazuki, etc. Among these people, there are those like Urahara Kazuki who follow existing rules. There are also people like you who are dissatisfied with this decadent world, dissatisfied with the king as a sacrifice, and want to be the king of the new world that is not bound. And I.